Thank you for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Ryan and Scott. This week's special guest, me, Jeffrey Wynne Prince. This week's episode, Life of the Modern Musician.
In a perfect world, it will all work perfectly.
In a world without latency.
Exactly. A world I've yet to see or witness, actually. A world with no latency. It sounds too fantastical to be real.
I don't know, a little bit of delay sounds okay.
Dude, delay is awesome.
Like we're in sort of a, I don't know, like a room.
Yeah, it's true. It makes it feel almost like we're literally sitting in a room.
Right.
Which is
fascinating.
Movie magic. How that works, actually, you know. Although this, I guess, is not a movie. I don't know. Just magic stuff. I find it pretty magical, yeah.
So today we've got a very special guest.
All right.
My dear, dear friend, one Mr. Jeffrey Prince.
Woo! Jeffrey!
Ow!
All right.
Long-time listener, first-time guest.
All right.
All right.
All right. Very cool.
Yes. For those of you who've heard me reference all of our listener, everybody.
Literally dozens of fans.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
I mean, we're talking literally almost 15, verging on. You know what I
Yes.
mean? That's pretty amazing. So.
15, which means you're too old to appear in Star Wars.
Oh, man. I don't know where to even start with you on that one, man.
Hey, you know what? 3 Red Dots is becoming a hit. Like,
You know,
if
you
I
should
can
be-
turn that into a meme, then I'll get sued by Paramount. But
If you're going to talk, though, I mean, didn't the latest Evil Dead movie have a bunch of children in it?
you want to know what happened to those
Would
children?
you argue that that's a children's movie? It's a children's...
I don't want to get into spoilers, but if the children in Star Wars met the same fate as the children in Evil Dead Rise,
You'd be happier,
I'd be
man.
all for it. I'd be all for it.
All
it
right.
would be great.
All right. I think we understand where you're coming from on that one, Ryan. All right. So welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan, Scott, and today with Jeffrey. We're going to be talking about all kinds of cool rock guitar-oriented and musician-oriented things today. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and get us started on what we're going to be talking about today?
So Jeffrey is an accomplished musician, singer, songwriter, producer, teacher, program director. So
Label owner.
There you go.
label owner, yes. So
Entrepreneur.
So since we've covered, what it's like to earn a living as a musician, and from a variety of different perspectives, we talked to Tom Murphy about what it's like to do the tribute band thing while also teaching full time in his background, and we talked to Judith Morgan about working as a vocal instructor and producing musicals and working in that world. So, I was hoping Jeffrey could just tell us all about his experiences and what he's up to now. And
It might have been better to have me on before them so you could build up to something instead of the crashing letdown that this is going to be.
dude, not at all.
Not at all. So let's start with, maybe your songwriting and that kind of thing. How'd you get into songwriting?
Well, to me, songwriting is everything. The guitar for me is more of a vehicle or a tool to write with than, you guys are guitarists.
Yeah, I kind of look at it that way too. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I'm like, well, Bob Dylan uses a guitar to write songs. Jimmy Page is a guitar player. It's a different thing. You know
Right,
what I mean?
Rich topic.
And I have this all the time when I get a songwriting student who is a guitarist first. They're a guitarist that writes songs. I'm not that. I'm a writer that plays guitar.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important distinction, and I'm in no way bagging on my guitar abilities. I'm the best me that there is.
Which is awesome.
But I'm really using it as a way to express myself through the creativity of writing rather than the guitar as its kind of own thing.
Sure. That's actually a great way to put it, too, for any guitar player. You're the best you. That's what you should always strive to be. You're not going to ever be whoever your favorite idol is going to be. I'm never going to be Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah,
You
you're
know what I
always
mean?
Nor
sound
should you
like
want to
yourself.
be.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Eddie Van Halen already exists.
Exactly.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
Ryan Bowe doesn't. So
Well,
get
I mean,
on it.
He does
That's
exist.
right.
Become Ryan Bowe.
He is
I'm
sitting
just
right
a
here.
figment of your imagination.
Exactly. He's the bandmate I thought I had.
I'm a Force ghost.
Yes, exactly.
Except I'm an adult.
So at least I know you're not a Sith. At least that happened.
Dude, I would so be a Sith. That would be so much more fun.
How do I know
you
that?
get the better armor. You get the cool red lightsaber.
But you always have to die in the most unimaginable
no,
way.
but you're a Force ghost later. You don't
And you're
die
a
in Star
fastest.
Wars.
Whoa! Sith, a Force ghost? What is wrong
You
with
cannot
you?
become a Force ghost if you're a Sith.
You become a Sith ghost. I don't know.
You
Whatever.
don't. Nope. Yeah.
This is why half the time I listen to your podcast when I'm not going, yeah, these guys are awesome. I'm yelling at my car stereo.
You know what?
A Sith Force ghost.
Yes, that doesn't exist.
Okay,
Ryan.
what kind of Sith ghost is
There
there?
is
There
none.
isn't.
Okay,
when you
wait,
choose the
okay,
path of
so-
darkness, you just give up immortality.
Okay. So back during the original trilogy, before George Lucas turned it into Romper Room in Space, right? There was the original actor who played Anakin Skywalker, who then appeared during the Ewok party.
Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah, but Sebastian
Thank you,
Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw.
Yes, he was redeemed by the light side of the Force through Luke.
Yep.
And so, as a light side Jedi, he can be a Force ghost, but he couldn't be that as a Sith. That's why it's not Darth Vader.
It's Anakin
Okay,
Skywalker.
okay.
Yep.
So when Palpatine, like somehow they cloned him.
You're talking about
right?
Rise of
So,
Skywalker.
like, so
yeah.
where? Okay, so let's talk about like cloning and
Clone
artificial
technology was
intelligence and
set up
stuff.
in episode 2. It's clearly laid out for you. Do your own research.
okay, so
I am not here.
how does Palpatine
I'm not here
retain
to
his
hold your hand through
consciousness?
this.
I will famously quote Poe Dameron. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Okay, but is it really Palpatine? Is it the same Palpatine? Like if they
It's-
transfer your
it's a
consciousness,
mystery. Somehow, the secrets that only the Sith knew. Palpatine returned.
right? And
So
one of
that's-
those secrets was where the planet was,
That's-
where all of the Star Destroyers were being piloted.
It's
That
Exegol.
Exegol,
Nobody else in the universe could have detected or done something.
'cause it was
They didn't have
unknown
the,
regions.
they didn't have the Wayfinder.
That's true. They had to go through all these like giant, just like in the other side of the
Okay,
universe.
you don't
Wait,
know
is
what
it-
a Wayfinder is, and
I
you think
thought-
they're Sith ghosts, and
Wait.
you're trying to lecture
Wait,
me.
isn't,
on
no.
wait, isn't the Wayfinder? That's what Joseph Smith used to translate the Book of Mormon.
No, I think he just pulled that straight out of his ass. Actually, I'm pretty sure.
And we've come.
What episode is that in?
That's episode 4.5, I think, when Joseph Smith like discovers the Jedi, something like that.
I'll take your word for
I'll
it.
be honest; it's just as plausible as the real thing.
Man, yeah.
I'm sorry. We should
try
have gone there.
we try to avoid politics and
That's
religion
true.
here.
Oh, and religion, especially religion, because religion, you know.
Yeah, I have a ton of LDS
Which-
friends that I respect.
Which
do
Star
too.
Wars is for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, there was actual talk. I think in England there actually is a Church of the Jedi. I'm actually almost certain that's a real thing.
Cool.
I don't know how cool it is, but it exists. It's a thing. It
Hey,
really
you
is.
know, hey, if it brings people together to do positive things in the world,
That's the
then-
Ryan I know.
yeah.
Where's all the
okay,
darkness? You see, it's
stop
melting
it.
away.
Stop it.
See. Anyway, back to
I'm
songwriting.
melting.
Back to songwriting. We're losing our track.
Yeah.
So,
So songwriting.
tell us about like what got you into that. Like, what made you want to like when you picked up the guitar? What made you say, "I am not going to be a shredding guitar player. I want to write songs."
Well, it didn't exactly start that way. The my origin story,
Yes.
and now I get to show my age. So I wasn't allowed to stay up and watch all the cool shows after 10 p.m., but I was raised by much, much older grandparents, so they had an early bedtime, so I figured out how I can fake go to sleep and then get up.
Nice.
So-
It's an important skill.
Yep.
So I get up after they've gone to bed. I'm turning on channel 31 because Don Kirshner's rock concert reruns were happening at 10:30 p.m.
Nice.
Awesome.
And all of them were various levels of cool, but this one destroyed me, and I mean like in the best possible way. So there's this guy, and he's got long blonde hair, and he's got a white Telecaster. He's wearing all white leather, and he's holding the mic stand out here. I'm making hand gestures, which are awesome on a podcast that's audio only.
Use your imagination, people.
So he's got the Telecaster in one hand, the mic in the other, and he's like pointing down at the crowd. He's on his knees and he's all, "I want you to want me," and I'm all, "This is the best fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. I have to do this." So I begged my grandparents for a guitar because the guitar was the key to this whole thing, and they got me a crappy acoustic.
Nice. Just
Yep.
tradition.
As is tradition. Yep.
And the only thing I learned on that acoustic was that if it was almost in tune and I took it and hit it against the wall, it was the opening to Hell's Bells.
Yes.
It literally was the tonality of the bell. that they're, yeah.
Bong. Yeah, man.
Well, fast forward a couple of years and I'm visiting my cousin, and he has a black Les Paul copy and an amp that he just picked up. And I'm just sitting there staring at this thing because I'd never seen something that beautiful up close in person. And he's like, "You want to play it?" And I'm like, "I can't touch this. This is like Ark of Covenant."
I know.
Yeah.
And so he just puts it in my hands, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I just hit a string, and I don't even have the vocabulary now at my age to describe that feeling. But it's like I have before that moment happened, and then the rest of my life. Like that was a life-changing thing. And my grandfather saw it. He saw, and so the very next week he bought me a Black Les Paul copy.
Oh, how
that's
awesome is
awesome.
that? That is such a good story.
That's killer. I love that.
And so I didn't know that I wouldn't be a shredder. It's that I started taking lessons, and within the first week of lessons, I learned D chord, G chord, C chord. And yeah, it was cool to play them, but it was way more cool to figure out what musically was happening between them. And so I wrote a song before I could really play the chords correctly. And so I don't know that I made the decision. Just that's where my heart
You
went.
just kind of follow where you're interested.
Yes.
That's-
I love that, man. I forget. I think it was a student I was talking to about, learning something new, whether it's a new chord or learning a scale or a mode or something. To me, growing up, dude, that was like getting a new box of Legos.
Yeah,
like
it's
what
true.
can I build with this? Whoa, there's that cool chord extension. Okay, rad. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna alter it. I'm gonna try and write a song around it with the other stuff I know. It's just it's a new box of Legos.
Yeah, you go home and you chip away at it and you just then play all day long. And it wasn't like your parents had to crack a whip on you to make you do it either. It's like
No,
you couldn't
not at
wait
all.
to get your hands on the guitar. It was
No, it
crazy.
was like a new Christmas present all the time.
Every day.
Right?
You pick up
Yeah.
the guitar, like, I'm going to plug it in and turn the amp up and hit an A5 chord, and I'm just going to sit
Right.
there and just soak it in. It was just kind of like a whole... I don't know that I talk to students who have that experience anymore. I don't feel like there's like this super big hunger to go and just stand there and soak in the power of a sustaining power chord. You know what I mean? I don't have that happen too often. Do you have? Do you guys ever have that happen? A student just like who's super into it like that?
I mean, obviously there's students who. Well, I mean, I don't know if on that, like, I assume on that granular level because they're still doing it and they're progressing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, my students are a different sort of thing, because if you go to play a guitar and you can't play the guitar, you goddamn know you can't play the guitar.
Not always. Not always.
Okay.
there's definitely a lot of time spent helping someone learn to operate the instrument, and some people have a harder time than others. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so when I have a songwriting student, a lot of them have never written a song. They think that it's a learned skill. And I can teach someone the mechanics of songwriting the same way you can teach the mechanics of playing a guitar. But you can't teach them the creative, how do you get an idea for a song? Like how structure is kind of like that innate thing, sort of like timing is.
Yeah.
You kind of have certain gifts or you don't, and those can't be taught. So it's a different thing, because I'm not going to have someone that's on fire because all of a sudden they realized, oh, at 16 bars the chorus could come in, and stand there in the awe of that. Like it's a whole different process.
You know what, though? I think if they went home and wrote a song and they did that 16 bars and the chorus came in, though, and they created something, they could kind of stand back in awe of the creation that they made. Like, holy shit, I just did that. You know what I mean? That's something I think it would be an equivalent to that sort of thing.
But I don't get to see that.
That's true. Yeah.
That's where I think it's different. My first guitar teacher, he saw that moment with me the first time I hit a B sus chord.
Do you mind if I ask, who was it?
What was this? It was at Uncle Bob's Music Mart.
Oh, okay. See, Jeffrey and I, well, actually, all three of us have a common thread in that we all worked at Guitar Player Music
Oh, yeah.
at some point. Or
I was
another.
there so briefly, though, man. I was like there less than a year.
But hey,
Me
it's how
too.
we met.
Yeah. I mean, it's my buddy Eric was teaching over there. That's why I started working over there when I came back from LA.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we met there, so
Yep.
that's that can
So,
be
common experience,
Yep.
little brick and mortar place that is no more, but, brought people together.
I'm actually shocked how long that place stayed in business, considering the way it was run. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Ed Mazzaros.
Yeah.
how did you keep it together
love
that
Ed.
long? I mean, my God.
Yeah. Did I ever tell the story of how Ed decided that he didn't want to listen to the music we brought in anymore? He decided we were going to sell new age CDs from this one publisher, right? So and we could only listen to that music. I mean, and it was awful, man. It was. All
Is this
so
like some
bad.
kind of deal he struck with this publisher or something?
I think it
mean,
was just he wanted it to be a profitable endeavor, and he didn't want to listen to all the music we brought in.
Oh, okay.
Whether it was Whitesnake or Dokken or the Smiths,
Or something good.
dude.
All right,
Okay.
we'll
There's
unpack
the
that at
first-
some point down the line.
There's the first gauntlet thrown down.
Good like the Smiths, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to stay broad here.
I had that coming out of my mouth before you said the Smiths.
I knew it.
When you dropped the Dokken bomb.
Dude,
so good. Anyway,
we're gonna have a talk about that.
we are. That's the podcast is young.
Yep.
So, but yes, I did also throw the Smiths in for your benefit.
Thank
I
you.
Knew, I knew.
Was
that
it
would stop.
specifically for Jeffrey's benefit? Is
Well,
that why-
I mean, although,
even then you knew.
Although,
at
true
some
story,
point.
the guys hit all my Smith CDs with the 99-cent price tag while I was at lunch one day. Anyway, so Ed decides we're only going to sell these new agey CDs, right? And so, my coworker and I took a look through all of them, and we found a CD that was like hours of didgeridoo music.
Called Didgeridoo.
That's right, didgeridoo.
Exactly.
Right. So for a week,
Your nightmares are now realized.
yeah, dude, from open to close for at least a week.
And I don't want to speak ill of Ed, who's passed on.
Oh, I loved Ed.
But
yeah.
he was the inspiration for Gary Cole's character in Office Space, right? Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to need you to put on the new age CD.
Yeah, the students didn't show up, so we're just not going to pay you for that time.
So right. So I'm counting the drawer one morning after a week of open to close.
Waiting for the sweet embrace of death.
Anyway, so I'm counting the drawer and I see Ed's hand in front of my face as I'm looking down at the counter. Thump. So Ryan, you really like this shit, huh? It's like, yeah, Ed, it's really great. Take it home and never bring it back.
So you have permission to throw it straight in the dumpster.
So I got a free CD filled
Of
with
didgeridoo.
Didge music.
So when
yeah.
you bring the ladies home, put the didgeridoo on.
Oh, dude, that
That's
was my secret
setting
weapon
the
back in the
stage right
day.
there.
And you know what, though? Sadly, those days are over. Now you have to get your didgeridoo on Spotify.
That's true.
You got to stream your
People have to stream the
didgeridoo.
didgeridoo.
That's right.
It's not the same, man. You got to put the vinyl on.
Yeah.
So you really get the full experience. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Well, it's funny to me hearing you talk slander about Dokken because, like, obviously we grew up listening to nothing
Here
but
we
metal,
go.
and it's funny to me because I know it's weird. I've only been around other guitar shredders, so it's interesting. Like, what is it about Dokken that you don't like? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Like, what is the kiss of death for
Yes.
you and Dokken?
And let's go tooth and nail until we find out. You know.
Yeah, straight to the top.
Yep.
It might
Because we'll be back for the attack if you don't finish this thought.
It's going to get scary.
Just take the answer.
Mr. Scary.
I know. I didn't know how to leave that in
We'll
quite
just
right.
take this answer night by night, all right?
Yep. If you don't, then you can be guaranteed that heaven will come down.
Right. And then I might howl the cry of the gypsy.
And you got to beware because you never want to unchain the night.
And hey, but whatever you do, just don't lie to me.
But don't worry, you're not a prisoner.
Even
I'm
if we
alone
keep you-
again.
even if we're keeping you under lock and key.
Yeah. But if you say the wrong thing, we will put you into the fire. That's for sure.
Okay, guys, let's just erase the slate and get back on track.
But
That was amazing.
I feel like I'm going to drown in hatred, though. I'm sorry.
Okay, so my issues with Dokken.
Okay.
So, love George Lynch.
This chorus.
Woo.
Blessed
All
be
right.
his name.
Okay, cool. So it's okay. You
I
love
guess it's all
George
good.
Lynch,
All right,
so it's
moving on.
settled. Dokken's
Yep.
awesome.
No,
All
my
right,
my
next
issues
band.
with Dokken are not guitar oriented issues.
Because I never noticed there was anything in that band besides guitar.
Nice.
The guitar is the only thing in that
Hey,
band. right?
Jeff Pilson's a great singer.
Yeah, and Mick Brown's great, too.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, okay. So go ahead. Aside from that, go ahead. Yep.
Don Dokken's voice very thin, perpetually 20 cents flat.
Yep.
And their songs are so far ahead of the beat that I felt like they never had the right groove for how George Lynch was playing.
I would agree with you 100% on the Don Dokken part. I think Don Dokken was always the weak link in that band, for sure. Although I can't imagine someone else singing those songs. It's weird.
I can imagine anyone singing. Okay,
I
hold
know,
on. Picture Klaus Meine singing
It
those.
would be
Oh,
great.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Klaus.
that'd be great. Dude, I'd
A
like
lot
to
more
hear
power.
Ray Gillen singing those. That'd be great.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be incredible.
Dude,
but
no doubt.
Which, by the way, I just found out Ray Gillen was almost a singer in Lynch Mob. I guess he chose Badlands
Okay.
over Lynch Mob.
Well, I mean, he was
Yeah.
in those circles, and well, I mean,
Yeah.
he was recorded before with Black Sabbath
Yep.
before the Eternal Idol.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some demos of him singing "The Shining" off of that album, which is awesome, by the way.
He's a fantastic singer, for sure.
Let's give a shout out again to Tony Martin for those Black Sabbath albums.
Yep.
That really should have been Tony Iommi's solo albums.
Yeah.
Tony Martin, hell of a singer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure. And Ray Gillen, a hell of a singer too. But Don Dokken, very mediocre at best. I'm being generous with that as a singer for sure.
Yes, and a lot more style over substance, which I know was a big part of a lot of that music. Not all of it. But I was an 80s fan. But I feel like that's why Dokken didn't earn a place in kind of the pantheon of the great bands.
Yeah.
Is that Don Dokken just doesn't have the goods to the level
Yeah,
that
I agree
George
with
Lynch
that.
has.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I can see
So
that.
to me, even though I liked a lot of Dokken's music, at some point I felt they were really just kind of pop disguised as metal.
I don't know, man. The rhythm and guitar stuff was so interesting and unique.
But the guitar was,
Yeah.
but the melodies that Don Dokken was creating, especially after the second album when they started writing completely independent from each other.
Yeah.
Don Dokken's in Arizona, the rest of the band's in LA, and they're mailing files.
See, I would argue that Under Lock and Key is my favorite Dokken record.
Interesting.
Which is,
Well, for me, it was, I mean, all of, everything we're saying notwithstanding, hearing the chorus.
By the way, I have every Dokken album.
yeah, Dokken's rap.
Yeah. So now it's.
But here's the thing, though.
Beast from the East might be my favorite one.
Unlike, if you pop on Blackout by Scorpions.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Now, production-wise, it does have a little bit of the 80s sheen, but it's got a lot more weight to it than a lot of the 80s stuff in retrospect. But song-wise, Blackout holds up with a 2023 ear.
Sure.
It sounds classic, but it doesn't sound dated. Dokken doesn't hold up through that same filter.
I think it depends on which record you're talking about. I would say Under Lock and Key still totally holds up. I think Back for the Attack doesn't. Yeah, I agree with that. Back for the Attack definitely has a very dated kind of sound to it.
The songs are better on that album, though.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I'll say I remember the joy as a kid in maybe like 6th or 7th grade, finishing Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and then hearing this song
Dream Warriors.
while the credits are going. Before I know,
You mean the one
Dokken
that's
is.
indistinguishable from Warren D. Martini?
I mean, maybe,
Well, those guys
but-
there's so much cross pollination between those two guys. I mean,
Look, yeah, definitely some distinction. I think Warren.
blessed be his name as well.
What?
Warren DeMartini, blessed be his name.
Oh, yeah, definitely,
For sure,
right.
yeah.
So, I was backstage for Rat Scorpions a few years back.
Awesome.
the Rayleigh Field one?
At
right?
Rayleigh
Yeah.
Field.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
The band I was in shared the same manager as Stephen Piercy.
Oh, nice.
Rad.
So,
Rat.
so I'm back there, and it's not quite encore time for Scorpions, and Warren D. Martini, he's got a finger in one ear, and he's like playing with just his left hand. He was figuring out with the Scorpions playing at full volume, and he's 15 feet behind them. He's figuring out the leads for Rock You Like a Hurricane so he can go join them on stage.
I love that.
That's so
and,
cool.
And he's note for note with Matthias. Like,
Love it.
it was
Matthias Jabs, by the way, is an awesome guitar player. That guy
Isn't
does
he?
not
And
get
funny.
even close to enough
So
credit.
underrated.
And he's so funny. And to be funny when English isn't your first
Yeah.
language, that's a whole other guitar skill.
But I mean, everyone who talks Scorpions always like go waxes philosophically about Uli and Michael Schenker, rightly so. With that being said, like they're like, yeah, and then whatever the '80s version, I'm like, dude, Matthias is great.
Matthias is a
Yeah.
monster.
Yeah, and killer, tasteful. Like look at those, like any of those solos and any of those
Memorable.
classic Scorpions records are fantastic.
Not just have you heard their latest record?
I haven't. No.
Okay, so Rock Believer, which is the title cut and name of the album, I will go on record on this podcast in front of literally 12 people.
Yeah, 12, 13 people maybe. Someone might have wandered in accidentally.
is
That's
the-
cool. We're up
it
over
is-
the dozen mark.
It's
That's like a
the-
baker's dozen of listeners.
It's the best song of the Scorpions' career, No Outside Rider. It's a Rudolf Schenker, Klaus Meine original, and it
Nice.
is the best song they've ever recorded. It brings me to tears, and I listen to it almost every day.
Oh, that's cool.
awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, and it should be noted that Scorpions now has the greatest rock drummer of all time in the band.
Oh,
Hands
Mickey
down,
D.
indisputed.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Mickey
Yeah.
D. Yep.
I thought you were going James Kodak for a second. Like, no.
No, I'm talking Mickey D.
Okay.
Now, I love that he's in Scorpions. The only other band he should be in is King Diamond again, so that I can get an original King Diamond lineup.
Yeah, I mean that could still happen.
But their current drummer Matt Thompson's awesome too, but Mickey D is like singularly
The
awesome.
thing that's amazing about Mickey D is that, to me, he plays the way a bassist should play, where it's the space between his notes that define his note instead of playing through it. And like
Yeah.
he's so far behind the beat when he needs to create a pocket, he's on the previous song. Like that's how far behind the beat he is.
Oh
Like,
yeah, listen to the intro to Welcome Home, that iconic drum fill, right? There's ghost strokes in there, and it's so good.
You know, one thing I like about Mickey D too, if he ever wants to go into rap, his name is all ready to go. You know what I
True.
mean?
He would just
Just
have to get rid of
add the word
E's.
DJ and then go Mickey D. You know, that he'd be like right there. You know
But
what I mean?
McDonald's would file a cease and desist.
You're probably right.
Right?
Damn it.
I'm sure it's in some marketing
Yeah, they
materials.
say about the
for-
plans of mice and men. Oh well,
for chicken strips. Or,
sons of bitch. Yeah, they
Right.
make more room for the
No, no.
Cardi B meal. That's why.
So Dawkins versus Scorpions. I guess it's becoming a battle royale.
I would go Dawkins personally,
I would go Scorps.
just because of George Lynch, man. That'd be the only reason.
The iconic songs. Plus, if we take the whole career, then I get Matthias Jobs and I get Uli
Shanker
John
and Rourke.
Roth and Shanker.
I gotta tell you, man,
if we're gonna
I'd still
go with
go
one of those
Dawkins.
bands that had a bunch of great guitar players, it's like the Whitesnake factor, or like the Ozzy Osbourne factor. Like every great guitar player
that's
had
true.
to pass through.
Yeah,
at
if
some
you could just
point.
take Ozzy Osbourne.
The
and
thing is,
that's
I can get the argument for if George Lynch is your guitar god or one of them.
he's in my top 5.
Okay.
I love
Yeah,
George
yeah.
Lynch.
I could see on a 1-to-1 being like, okay, I'll take George Lynch over this list of
Yeah, yeah.
incredible Scorpions players. But there is no way without being on heroin that you could pick Dawkins as a band over the Scorpions.
Oh, well, I would do that. And
That almost sounded like a Kurt Cobain segue.
Exactly. I shall have you know, I've only done black tar heroin this morning only. I can stop whenever I want.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yep. No, I would go Dawkins. I would. I mean, I love the Scorpions too. It's almost
I'm
like
not
a
going to
Sophie's
argue with
choice.
your opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
way.
that's what the podcast is for.
Yeah, it's
But,
true. You're wrong though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Scorps.
It's all good, brother.
Dude, I'll never forget being in 6th grade. So Blackout, right? My best friend and I thought that he was singing "I Really Had a Big Lunch." Da 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 da. Big lunch. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
A lot of early
"Ah,
Scorpions
well."
was lunch related.
But it sounded
Lunch
cool.
yeah.
It didn't matter what Klaus Meine was singing about, even if he had a big
It's
lunch.
the same thing like we were talking about the Dynamite when he just kept saying like for the whole chorus of Dynamite. It is just so cool.
Well, as you know, and I mean, this might also be, a rich topic for discussion. Speaking for myself, unless the lyrics have the word hamster in it, I generally don't care what the lyrics
That's
are.
true. The Austrians should
in
know
most
that
songs.
Ryan has a
And
very
maybe that just
extreme
makes me
anti-hamster
a
agenda.
different kind of
No,
person.
So the first day that I have like a group class of songwriting, I put the hierarchy of importance of things up on the whiteboard. And of course, there's always somebody. It's like, well, what's more important? Lyrics, music, melody. I'm like, melody is what's going to grab the listener. The lyric is what's going to keep them a fan of the song for life. Because I really think it's impossible to dissect a lyric the way you would a poem the first time you hear it. The first time you hear it, it's the melody that's infecting you. But then I think people can get turned off to a song once they're into it and they learn the lyrics and go, oh my God, these lyrics are terrible. And
Excuse
then
me,
you-
why? Kiss the sky. What are we talking about?
Yeah, and then you lose
Yeah.
interest, right?
Yeah.
But if the lyric is truly awesome, all of a sudden it goes from being a song you like to a song it's going to be a lifelong love affair with. So I think they're important, but I don't think they're more important than melody.
Well, I don't know. What do you think, Brian? What's your take on that?
I mean, generally speaking, well, I mean, this is coming from, like, I only ever wanted to be a really great guitar player
Sure.
growing up, right? So, admittedly, I mean, yeah, I write, so as you know, I don't write lyrics.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, if you want me to write business correspondence, I'm great.
Dude,
If
maybe
you want me
try-
to
that's-
artfully write lyrics, then nope. I mean, I could edit lyrics.
Well, my favorite shredder guitarist who wrote most of his own stuff, he always had said the lyric needs to sound convincing. And the hardest part is the lyric because to him, music he could write all day, every day. But to write a lyric that people could connect to him, that was the challenge.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
And until our band, I put out
Gary Moore, by the way.
Gary
Oh,
Moore's
I
a
love
great
Gary
guitar
Moore.
player.
Oh man, Still Got the Blues is like the perfect. Here's how to bend notes on your guitar lesson.
Oh man, his playing is so killer.
My
Yeah.
favorite guitar solo of all time, though, is the one on Wild Frontier.
Is that the all time really?
All time favorite guitar solo ever of guitar solos.
It's hard to argue, man. He's a great guitar player for sure.
So great.
Tone too for days, and different kinds of tones too. He has like a rock tone. He has like a blues, like a sinewy blues tone. It's pretty amazing. But I was just gonna say, I've put out 5 instrumental records, so this is my first opportunity to write lyrics in this band. So
Yes, so X Ages. Well, I thank you for your fine lyric writing.
Oh man, I appreciate you saying
efforts.
that.
I appreciate that. Yep.
So I can totally relate to that.
So I'm curious then, coming from a background where you write instrumental,
Yep.
and now you're being thrust into the world of lyrics, is your process to have the instrumental thing completed and then you're kind of plugging in lyrics
That's exactly
that
right.
fit the shape
Lyrics
of the melodies?
have to fit the melody. The melody comes first, and then the lyrics fit into the melody.
So that's interesting to me.
To me, that's because I still think of it like an instrumental player. I still hear the melody first, and then I just see what words would fit that. And you kind of work through it. And to me, it's almost like wait for it to come to me kind of thing. I'll sit there and I'll listen to the part, I'll hear the melody, and then I'll start thinking about lyric lines that could work in that. And I'll kind of take it line by line and work my way through it. And kind of at the end of the day, I'll have a whole thing done, and then I'll fine tune it, if that makes sense. But I always think melody first. And I can tell when someone doesn't do that too. Like when I hear somebody who writes lyrics and then they sort of like superimposing the melody on the lyrics, I can tell when that happens. Actually, this weekend I got to support one of my students on the recital. I'm actually playing and singing "Smooth" by Santana. Oh. And some of the lyrics on the verse, I could tell like this is no reason that this should be here. This is like way too many words for this melody. You know, I mean, they should have totally pruned that or come up with something different. I can see it. It's like you just brought a bunch of lyrics and you just kind of are trying to fudge it in.
Yeah, you try to shoehorn in a word that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But read on the page, it fits.
Yes.
So you're trying to make the two things work.
Yeah, and you're sort of like rambling through these 4 or 5 words to make it kind of fit the melody. Like, you could have just rewrote the lyrics and made it totally fit
and
the
if
melody.
you just make a rule that melody is king, you can avoid that internal argument. It's like, well, yeah, this lyric is great, but melody is the most important, so I have to prioritize.
Yep. And I think some songwriters just really see themselves like poetry writers, and then they try and find a way to shoehorn it into the melody.
And when I have a student like that, I try to get them to just not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, poetry is an incredibly powerful art form, but it's not lyrics. They are not the same thing. Your lyric does not need to read well.
Yeah.
It needs to sing well.
Yeah, it has to suit the melody. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, someone, read the lyrics to Holy Diver.
Yeah.
Right? Like those, like Ronnie wrote whatever just fit with the melody.
Yeah.
And you know what? I dig that because I can project onto it whatever my imagination wants to.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even, like what Jeffrey was saying, like you don't even know the words for a long time. So
Well, if
you go back and go like, oh yeah.
If the prosody is correct, I'm getting the blank stare.
Prosody.
Okay.
Please explain.
Prosody is when the tone of the lyric matches the feel of the melody.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
So the song sounds like heartbreak, and then the lyrics are about heartbreak, as opposed to the Smiths, where they used irony. One of the first bands that successfully
One of my
convey
favorite
irony.
metal bands is Irony Maiden. We've talked about that before. Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Made an appearance on this podcast many times. Yeah.
But when you have great prosody, the lyric doesn't have to say as much, because the music is filling in that emotional component.
Love it.
Or they work hand in hand to get the same thing done. You know
Or
what I
they
mean?
work hand in glove.
Oh.
I would drop the mic, but
Yeah,
for all of our
before the
remaining
podcast.
listener out there, that was a Smiths reference.
The only people that drop mics are people that have never bought mics.
that was a
True.
$6,000 Neumann. What are you doing? Oh my God.
Figurative mic drop.
Yeah. They give you this Audio Technica $75 one. Drop that one. Yeah. No, it's. I love that that's become a cultural thing. The drop the mic thing.
Drop the mic
That's
thing.
drop the mic. You know.
Yeah, what did Mike ever do to you
Yeah,
anyway?
I know, exactly. Well, you know, he did. He didn't like the Scorpions as much as Dawkins, so he's my buddy. It's all good. So let me ask you this question, because this is another thing that's going to be just going to throw it out there, just because I'm going to drag
Changing topics.
Jeffrey into this conversation. Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads?
Ooh.
Got to pick one.
The reason that the question is tough, can we limit it to the time they were both playing and active, as opposed to, because we don't know what Randy could have been.
Yeah, no, that's
Like,
fair.
we're
That's so
comparing
fair.
an entire career of Eddie Van Halen
It's
to
like 83. It's stopping at like 83.
Well, I mean, and part of it's just kind of an emotional answer.
and it doesn't matter. My answer is Eddie Van Halen either way. But,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I
Okay,
think
fine. I'm still Team Randy, but that's okay.
But you know what? Randy's
We can
awesome,
also
though.
be
That's the
friends.
thing. He's awesome. I can't say a thing about it. Randy's
So
incredible.
if
But
I
here's
could
the thing.
Go ahead. Yep.
Eddie Van Halen, I hope I've been on here enough time, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get kicked off in about 30 seconds.
Not at all.
I don't like Eddie Van Halen's lead playing.
Oh my God.
Okay, I think he's an innovator, and I think he influenced and created the entire guitar culture we have, and I'm thankful for that. And I think his rhythm playing, underrated as hell.
Oh, totally.
I think he became an incredible songwriter. I think what he did for the guitar is immense.
Yes.
That being said, aside from 2 solos, he doesn't have any that move me the way a guitarist that plays like a singer does.
I get you.
Like, to me, I will take an Alex Lifeson solo over an Eddie Van Halen solo anytime.
Oh, Alex Lifeson's awesome.
Well, Alex Lifeson is awesome.
Yeah.
I would simply.
And that might be
counter
unfair.
with-
Alex Lifeson is my favorite player.
He's awesome.
Well,
dude.
I love Alex
Rush is my
Lifeson.
second favorite band of all time. So, yeah.
I hung out with Alex and Getty.
Dude, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah, Van Halen's number 1, but Rush is number 2 for me. That's for sure. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say, Ryan?
Oh no, I was just I find that I mean, and I love Rush also. All the love to Rush.
Yeah, Rush is awesome. One of the greatest
God,
bands
no
ever.
doubt. Absolutely, the first greatest power trio to come out of Canada.
Yep.
Followed by Triumph, the second greatest power trio to ever
got
come
it.
out of Canada.
Exactly.
Yes.
Maybe what Nickelback after that.
Nickelback is so bad. No, Nickelback is such a bad trio that they need 2 other guys.
They have to carry the weight. you know?
True that.
Okay, so I got blasted on social media, and I think Thomas Murphy led the charge because of this. I just posted, and you can just argue this if you want. If Nickelback plays a song in concert and no one's there to hear it, do they still suck?
Yep.
Oh, April Wine. I forgot about April Wine.
So
That's
here's
another Canadian
April.
band.
Well, they
Damn.
weren't a trio though.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah.
Technically,
Unlike
Nickelback.
Nickelback.
Right. Unlike
Nickelback was a
Nickelback.
trio with some
5-person
support.
trio.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about soloists, like I find a lot of Alex Lifeson's soloing to be kind of angular, and not as, I mean, Eddie would be to my ear a little bit, like I want to say smoother. Or
It is. So Eddie Van Halen,
you know?
very, very smooth. However, if you were to listen to just a segment of a Van Halen song you'd never heard, and you only listen to the solo,
Such a thing doesn't exist, I should assure you. There's not a Van Halen song I haven't heard.
I know.
Right.
So the 12 people that are listening,
Yes, exactly, guys. It's
We're
important.
down from a baker's dozen to a dozen.
Yeah, someone had to go to the
we're-
bathroom, I
We're
think.
losing viewership
because of my Nickelback comment.
right.
one guy
that one
left.
Nickelback.
I'm out. Nose of Nickelback slander.
Right.
That's the one that put him over with my comment. If you were to take just the segment of the bridge or wherever the solo happens to happen in a Van Halen song and listen to that as an isolated thing without knowing the song, you wouldn't know the emotional component of the song, because Eddie Van Halen solos, while impressive, not angular, not linear, interesting, creative, all over the place, they don't speak to the emotional component of the song.
Well, I think that has to do.
If you were to listen to just an Alex Lifeson solo, though, you would have a visual of what that song is. I think he plays to the song and Eddie Van Halen plays to the instrument. And I'm in no way bagging on Eddie Van Halen.
No, that's what this is.
But
good thing to. So I would suggest that, you know, there's a lot of, especially the early Van Halen songs, the emotion of the song is let's fucking party.
Yeah, that's true.
In which case the solo totally speaks
well,
to
that's
the
every
emotion of the
Rush song.
Yeah, and then I think
Except
after
not.
after like what Women Children First, it was something like "Fuck You, Dave" was the emotion he. So that explains why the solos were disconnected from the songs. Like "Fuck you," whatever you're singing, I don't give a shit. Here's the solo. Fuck you. That was kind of basically Eddie's
But also,
approach.
I don't mean that as an insult,
Yeah,
because
not a
that's
knock.
the way he. That's the way he played. The songs were more of a vehicle for what's going to happen when the solo comes up.
Yeah.
I love that.
But as a songwriter, when I hear something like Limelight and that solo comes in, that solo takes the song where it was and melodically elevates it to another level, that when that last chorus comes in, something really magical happens melodically.
Yeah.
And Van Halen, for as great as they were with their songs, they don't have those moments.
I don't know. I think that later they did. Like if you listen to like 5150, Oyo and 2, I think the solos really were an extension of the song, and that he got more into the songwriting part of it and less the soloing part of it. You know what I mean? So the later Van Halen stuff, he was definitely more doing. Like Dreams is a good example of a solo where he was very much extending.
Well, the
that,
solo at the end, yes, but
Yeah.
the solo in the middle has no connection to that song.
No, but I mean it's
There's no intimacy.
that middle of that part is more of a breakdown, but the outro solo. And if you look at a song like When It's Love, very much in the vibe of the song. If you look at the solo, like going to what's the Best of Both Worlds?
No,
That
you're
kind of
you're
thing.
right, because Dreams right now, I can sing that solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's hooked in.
I mean,
my head
Can't
from-
Stop Loving You,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. You know what I mean? There's a bunch
Well,
of
that's
tunes,
got the big like hook, the big key melody at the beginning.
Yeah, but I mean,
Stop
he kind of
Loving You, yeah.
grew
It's like
into that.
he needed Sammy, who could actually write melodies
Yes.
to play off of.
And Dave was more like a carnival barker. Hey, what's up? Yeah, it was like his attitude was the whole. He was selling the shtick.
Well, look,
Yeah.
the first Van Halen album, it's all attitude.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
it's vibe. 5150 is all songs.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's to me that is
A maturity level of
that's-
songwriting too.
That's the like big Dave versus Sammy debate. Not which one was a better front man, better singer, all that. It's like one was vibe and one was songs. And I think if you like songs, you can be Van Hagar, and if you like vibe, you're.
I've never understood the
You're
hate
hard.
towards the Sammy Hagar era because, like, I said this on the podcast before. Like, I could see, hating it if it sucked, but it didn't. It was great.
No, it was,
It's
well,
like,
I want to give a. So we're talking about like great Van Halen solos. I'm going to give a shout out to the solo in "Humans Being" with Gary Sharon.
Gary
Actually,
Sharon
that's
was on
actually
Humans
Sammy,
Being,
and
that's
that's
still
Sammy.
Sammy.
What?
Sammy did Humans Being. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, wasn't that
Without
off
You was Gary Sharon.
Yeah.
Year to the Day is Gary Sharon.
Human Beings is not on an album; it's on the Twister
of
soundtrack.
Humans Being?
Yeah, Humans Being. Yeah, that's Sammy Hagar.
Is it
Yeah.
really?
Yes, it is.
I totally thought. Okay.
That was the last thing they recorded
Yeah,
with Sammy
Shine
until they
On,
did
Shine
like the
On,
reunion
that's-
thing in 2004.
Yeah, that song. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's the one. Really?
Yeah, that's
Hey, I'm
Sammy.
happy to stand
I
corrected.
think I just
still-
sang that in a different key. I'm sorry.
No, who knows? That's the song. Well, I love the solo in that song. I think it totally elevates.
It's got a lot of attitude, man, for sure. Yeah.
Right. That big positive.
I'll never forget
Yeah.
like that after that came out, and then like with a few months later, I remember I saw an interview where Eddie was talking some smack about Sammy. I'm like, oh, and then Sammy's out there being like, come on, let's not do this, guys. And then of course, into the wilderness.
Yeah, we
went.
talk about like where we were when someone is assassinated, and we're kind of at that age where we sort of missed the presidential assassinations. But
Yeah,
to
right.
me, I remember where I was when I heard that Sammy Hagar wasn't in Van Halen.
Yeah.
Like it devastated
That was
me.
like the MTV
Yeah.
Awards, right? Like David Lee Roth walked up on stage with them, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Dave's back in the band!" And then it turns out, no, he wasn't. He was out before that whole thing was over. and
Yeah, that was
It
what
was-
a tease.
it was so weird. And then Gary Sharon's in the band. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I like Extreme, but it's
Yeah,
like
Gary Sharon's a great guy to take that. I mean, he's got the pipes.
Yep. I mean, I think that album
I
they
wish that
made-
coulda,
The album they made with him wasn't as bad as everyone says either. It just wasn't
course
what people
not.
wanted. People wanted
Yeah.
it to be like Fair Warning or something. It wasn't going to be that. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. I think I've completely kidnapped our podcast to talk about Van Halen again. That's something
okay.
I tend
Every
to do.
podcast we can talk about. Van Halen.
We should because
It's a guitar
No, no.
podcast. How are you not going to talk about Van Halen?
So none of that gives me the awesome like Dracula's haunted castle like. All of the administrators at my Catholic school would be pissed if I were listening to this vibe that Randy and those Ozzy albums gave me.
Dude, so good.
Okay, so with my limited musical vocabulary when Van Halen was first kind of hitting, and I wasn't even buying albums yet, but someone gave me Van Halen 1 on a cassette.
Nice person. Holy crap. Yeah.
So, well, it was recorded off the.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like they went and bought one.
wasn't
Here,
the
this is
cassette,
for you. I bought this
but
for you. Okay.
I wasn't into music enough as a listener to really appreciate the subtle differences between putting the cassette recorder down next to the speaker and recording it versus going into a record factory and buying it.
Yeah.
But someone gave it to me on cassette, and of course, Eruption. I don't want to be the cliche, but it's like completely changed my life in some way.
Sure.
It's one of the only songs I ever dragged my grandfather into my bedroom and said, "You have to hear this."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, what am I listening to?" I'm like, "Okay, this is one guitar."
This might be the greatest
And-
guitar player alive. Check this
and-
out,
Greatest
you
thing
know?
I've ever heard.
So I play it for him. And of course, I'm like the annoying guy that is making you watch Napoleon Dynamite with him when you know every word going, "Are you watching this part?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "This part right here. He's doing this."
Yeah.
And once again, my visuals on a not visual podcast, I'm air
Yeah,
guitaring
air
finger
tapping.
taps.
Air tapping.
It finishes, and I look to him for a reaction. He goes, "Can you play that again?"
Oh,
My
so cool.
70-year-old grandfather wanted to hear Eruption again because that piece of music transcends musical taste. It's high art.
it's excellence. It's just
Absolutely.
extreme
It's a
excellence,
whole
you know?
other thing.
It's elemental. It's primal. It's it's Yeah.
And thank God that Ted Templeman walked by Eddie when he was warming up for a show and said, "Hey, we should record that." Just as an afterthought, they didn't even think about it. And
it's basically in free time. It's just Eddie, just pure expression,
and his
just
brother
in the
jumping
moment.
in occasionally to like add a little thing,
And 2 years later, I did that again with a song, and it was a Rush song.
Oh, really?
Because it was Digital Man by Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, "What is this band you're into with the female singer?" And I'm like, "That's not a female."
Her name's Getty, Dad.
And I go, and I referenced, I go, "Do you remember the guitar thing that I played you, Eruption?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I go, "This guy is him, but on drums."
Oh, you're talking about Peart.
Like, I had to have him hear Neil Peart, and I thought I could have played him Tom Sawyer, but I wanted to hear right off the top, because my grandfather was a huge Buddy Rich fan, even though he didn't play drums.
Buddy
and
Rich was wow.
I'm like 12, and I already get the Buddy Rich reference, but so I put on Digital Man, and it opens with a very Buddy Rich-esque fill. And he goes, "Can you play that again?" So it was like I was able to connect with my grandfather.
That's cool.
With these things that bridge double generation gap.
Yeah.
And the way I bridged was Van Halen and Rush.
That makes
Love
sense.
that.
I mean, Neil Peart's one of the only
That's
drummers.
awesome.
I'm getting actually a little misty.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But he's like the
Dude,
one,
I love that, man.
One of the few
That's why
drummers that
music's
can-
important,
It
you
is.
know?
It's very important, and I think that if you look at like what Neil Peart did for drums, it's pretty. It's hard to overstate it. He's like one of the only guys that people who are not drummers would stand and go want to watch him solo.
Yes.
Right.
That's very unusual.
And I don't think he drooled out of either side of his mouth.
No, he did not.
No.
No, he's an amazing lyricist.
Right, he
Good
was
man
awesome.
name. Yeah, I think it's crazy. I mean, you don't see anybody head for the bathrooms during a Neil Peart drum solo. In fact, that's like the highlight of the show. They kind of build it up like Van Halen's solo
Yes.
live. Same thing. It's like everyone's got to watch this.
Yeah, people are there to. People
Yeah.
were there to see Neil. I hate
Yeah, and
that
as-
it's past tense now.
As
but,
much as
yeah.
Well, Eddie too.
as much as unironic bagging I do on the shredder mentality of guitar, a lot of it is just tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
When I saw Van Halen on OU812, which was the only time I got to see them live, I was already firmly in the song camp at that point. Like my idea of being a shredder was past me, but still, the minute his guitar solo started, I couldn't hear it through. I was crying my eyes out, getting
So
to be
good.
in the same. You have that moment, and this is what I think sucks about music not being the most important thing to young people's lives, like it was to us.
Yeah.
And I want to be that guy. Things change, trends
Be
change. I
that
get
guy.
that.
You're with friends.
But the thing that I think they're missing out on is when you have something like music that is all encompassing like that, you can have a moment where you go and see a band that you love and you have this thought of, "Oh my God, I'm in the same room as Eddie Van Halen."
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
18,000 other people here, but you end up making a connection with him through what he's playing. You don't know him as a person, but you know him as an artist, and that art infects your soul in a way that makes your life better.
Yeah. I'll never forget that.
Dude,
when
I couldn't put that any better, Jeffrey.
I saw
That's
Van
the truth,
Halen
man.
one time in '93 when I was just going to graduate high school, and I remember standing like literally at front row, and I looked up and like 15 feet in front of me was Eddie Van Halen, and I remember having that exact thought. You're like, "Holy shit, that's Eddie Van Halen." He's like, I could like 10 feet from me, right there. I'm
Yeah,
like,
we're in the same room.
like breathing the same air. You know what I mean? It's like I
Yeah.
couldn't. It was like insane. You know what I mean?
So I'm a huge Rick Emmett fan. He was in my growing up. He was one of my top 5, and I think you guys had a podcast where you were talking about like Guitar World, Guitar Player Magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
I still have my Rick Emmett cover on Guitar Player.
Rick Emmett's awesome, dude.
Because
Nice.
to me, like that was my porn. Like
yeah, well, it had
he's got a double neck Yamaha white guitar, so like that hit every box. It's Rick Emmett. It's the Dream guitar.
Yep. He had that magic power.
He also had. He was fighting the good fight.
until it was over.
He had to lay
Hey.
it on the line.
He taught us how to follow our heart.
It's true.
That was a Gilmore song.
Oh, damn it.
What? Follow your heart?
Yeah, the drummer. That was one of his.
Oh yeah, got it. Yeah. Oh man, such a great singer that drummer was. Is.
Completely great. So, Rick Emmett.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rick, awesome
so
guitar
Rick Emmett goes solo, and I saw him at the Boardwalk,
Oh, yeah.
and I played at the Boardwalk like 10 days later, and all I could think was, I'm standing where Rick Emmett was. I'm standing where Rick Emmett was.
That's so cool. It's true. It's Jinx.
Jinx.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, that's even just backing out, like that band is so underappreciated, man. Triumph, it's amazing. Everyone's like, "Oh, Rush," which is deservedly, but I mean,
So this whole phenomenon of there's these musicians, whether it's Eddie or Rick Emmett, they're larger than life, right? When you first encounter them, but you get to see them live, and I think there's something powerful in realizing like we're all human beings, we're all humans being, right? That's part of that connection.
Bring it all together,
right? We're all flesh and blood, and we all poop in the morning.
I think
sometimes in the evening.
I think I don't need to know exactly when this happens, but we can probably
yes.
that, yeah.
So there's Neil Peart talked about this, that a lot of people would see like a great player in their chosen field, whether a guitar player, and they see Eddie and their thing is, oh, well, I guess I'm going to quit, because their thought is, I can never reach those heights. And that's where I think the whole self-esteem of being the best you comes in. It's like, okay, no, I can't be as good as Eddie Van Halen, but I can be me. And that's where I found myself, was in songwriting. I could like watch Rick Emmett and know I'm never going to know as much about guitar than he even knows in the first 2 frets. But I could potentially write a song that's as good as or better than Fight the Good Fight. Like, I felt like I could do something that could get me there, that could get me in that place. And it would be through my writing, not necessarily through my playing.
That's actually really important, I think, for people to understand, too, when it comes to, like, what you're going to try and aim for as a musician, too. Is I think the idea of I'm going to be my hero or my idol is really setting yourself up for disappointment. You got to be trying to find who you are. You got to dig through to figure out what it is that you have to bring to the table that you can give, rather than trying to be. I mean, like, you and I are both guitar shredders, Ryan, but it's like one of those things that, like, how many other guitar? There's millions of guitar shredders. That's not going to differentiate you at all. You have to have something else to bring to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, and if I could make and maybe this is in kind of piggybacking on what Jeffrey was saying. I mean, I guess I would just say, like, framing it as I'll never be as good as that player might just be the wrong way to think about it, right? I mean, the only bad guitar playing we should be able to agree upon is Kurt Cobain, and that should just be like a start.
Well, I mean, I think Kim Thayil.
However,
Kurt Cobain
when it comes to
was a great guitar player within the context of Kurt Cobain.
We could unpack that.
Yes,
I agree. Let's put that in the parking lot, because I was going to just make the.
No, you just said I agree. We need to take that. That's like real.
That's
in
the
the context of being Kurt Cobain. Now we haven't defined that, but that's okay. So
he was the captain of the comet that caused the grunge apocalypse. You know that, right?
I was thinking it was.
Are we going to get to the grunge apocalypse?
I really wanted to make. So I was just going to say.
Sorry, man.
The thing. So when I was a kid, when I first started picking up the guitar, is a conversation I had with a student recently. I mean, I've never looked like I can't play everything every other guitar player, right? Like, I'm not an elite or anything. But
here's the thing I'll say: there is no guitar player who can play everything everyone else can play.
Well, right. So I've never looked. I've never seen another guitar player play something and then reacted with, "I could never do that."
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
It might be I might not want to do that, or I might not want to put in all the work to specialize in that thing if it's a virtuosity thing.
Yeah.
But I've never had that feeling like, shit, I could never do that thing.
Yeah.
Like, I've just never had that reaction, that reflex.
And this is why I don't relate as a guitarist. I relate as a writer that plays guitar. Is I would never have those thoughts anyway. My thought would be, how did they write that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like, if it was something completely out of the box, how would I have to connect my synapses in a different way to figure out how to do that? Because a lot of people, when they see me play, they think I have chops.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do have chops. I've seen and heard you play.
I have some things that would be kind of difficult to play, but they're not difficult to play for me, not because I'm well practiced or because I know what I'm doing, but because I wrote it.
Yeah.
And if I write it in my head, it forces my hand to figure out how to do it.
Yep.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
And it's valuable enough
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I have the same kind of thing when I see someone great, but my mechanics aren't how would I play it, it's how would I write that.
And that's really the unknowable, too. That comes down to creativity, inspiration. You know what I mean?
So speaking of which, since everybody here is a music educator, do you guys find that... So I find there... It seems like there's a higher percentage of students who want to, quote, just learn songs. Like, just learn... Like they aren't interested in like composition or improvising.
Well, I only teach songwriting, so I can't even be part of that.
And I can tell you what, man, my student comes in, I don't care if they want to just learn songs, they're going to just learn music theory and harmony and technique, whether they like it or not.
Well, right, but I'm talking specifically about, like, it's one thing to ask a student X to, like, learn that Metallica song or learn, whatever the song is. But then when it's time to ask them to, okay, now I need you to, compose something. Here's this family of chords. Yeah. Here's your Legos. Go home and build something, right? Like, that's where I don't know. Like, that's where I have a tough time relating, because when I was younger, again, new chord, hey, rad, new Lego, I'm going to build a new thing. Or, I got this book full of scale patterns. I don't understand what they all mean, but they sound a certain way, so now I'm going to try and make something out of it.
But your student might not be drawn toward that. Maybe they don't want the box of Legos that they can pick their own thing. Maybe they want to buy the Star Destroyer set of Legos where they build the Star Destroyer out of the specific pieces. Maybe they want to learn to play Enter Sandman, and that's their end goal. Like that.
Right.
That's as far as the depth of the music goes to them, and I say at least it's that.
Yeah, I think maybe those people need more some structure or something you can kind of give them to it. I can agree with you on that 100%. We talked about this before. Like, he and I both had the same experience when we started teaching. It was beyond our understanding that you could pick up the guitar without wanting to be the greatest guitarist who's ever lived. Like, why would you even pick up the guitar if you didn't want to be Eddie Van Halen or Yngwie Malmsteen? That's why you play guitar.
Right. I wanted to be Robin Zander. Yeah. Like, when I saw that.
So we had a process to go through to, like, realize that not everyone wants to be a virtuoso. That took a while.
But, I mean, Robin Zander, virtuoso, songwriter, performer.
Frontman, for sure.
It's a virtuoso Robin Zander, yeah.
But that's where we can, share bread on this as the teaching community, because I'll have people that they just want to write one song. Like, they just have this
killer.
They just have this desire. It's like, I just want to write a song, and I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that, because my philosophy is you haven't written a song until you've written between 50 and 100 songs. Mm-hmm. They're like, what should I do to be a good songwriter? Go write 50 songs, throw them out, and bring me your 51st.
Yeah.
Like, the process is so involved. It's like, what do you mean you want to write one song? To me, that'd be the same thing as, I've got this guitar. I don't need to play in front of a million people or be great. I just want to learn a song.
I want to play a Green
What?
Day.
Well, totally. And it's like, so to your point, Jeffrey, about you've got to write 100 songs, 50 or 100 songs for writing a song. It's kind of like Ira Glass's thing about writing, right? You have to keep on doing it because your output, like, you have good taste. That's why you got into it. But your output doesn't match your taste yet. So you have to keep doing it until your output matches your taste.
And you have to do it enough that they don't mean anything to you. Because that first song you write, you're never going to want to improve it because that is your baby.
Yeah.
But the thing is, once you've written 50, it's easy to let 49 of them go.
Yeah.
Sure.
Once you've written 100, you can let 99 of them go. The idea is that writing is a craft as much as an art. And you want to get to the point where you can be completely objective about what you're writing is garbage, so that you can just go, and forgive yourself. Be like, wow, this song is garbage. I don't think I'm going to work on it anymore. I'm going to write something new. You cannot do that on your first song.
Yeah, that's
In
true.
fact, most people can't even do that their first 100. Like, it's a lot of work to take your ego out of it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
not intuitive
no
either. I mean, it's very not intuitive to take your ego out of it. It's to tie it up with who you are. It's part of what you are. You know what I mean?
And you're only good if you're like tied into it, because you have to write something from your voice that can connect to someone else. And like you guys had said about Motley Crue being actually authentic to what they were doing, they're singing about banging chicks and riding motorcycles.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott and Jeffrey. Please make sure to rate, subscribe, and review this podcast. Now back to the show.
That's
Partying,
right. That's authentic, and you have to be authentic if you actually want to connect with someone.
Yes, and shouting at the devil.
That's true.
Right.
Yes.
And being too fast for love.
Shouting at the devil to come over here and let me worship you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come have a beer. Yeah. Oh man.
No, I
Yeah,
agree. I
so-
think that's the Slayer debate episode when we talked about what the Motley Crue was just as authentic as Slayer. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
don't-
Right,
Slayer
like,
was just
and
as
music
authentic.
and music being fun and all
Yeah.
of that.
Yes,
and that
indeed.
was when I was yelling at your podcast a little bit because you
Oh.
keep talking about the grunge apocalypse and how incorrectly you label all of that.
No, I mean it was the death of
Hang
music.
on, I gotta.
So, I mean,
I'm gonna set up the chicken wire while you guys.
no, I mean grunge was like literally the comet destroying the earth, and then nothing.
It was
ever
the
came
Kennedy
back the same.
assassination
Yeah.
of music.
Except that it isn't.
Yeah, it's true. Music has never been good.
Yes,
since.
it
It's true.
was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I have the courtesy
go.
of being a guest here?
Yes.
Here's what, I don't want to change your opinions on this.
That's very wise.
No, that you can't, and I don't have any desire to either. I think that you guys are wonderful, and you thinking what you think is what makes you guys
as well.
you.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
just want to give you a different perspective based on what I've heard from your other podcasts.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll just add one other disclaimer that of course, this is all about opinions.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
true.
you want? I thought you were going to say the opinions expressed
And,
by our guest
yeah.
are not necessarily shared by those of the.
Scott and Ryan.
All right, everybody in the
Productions, right?
audience, make sure to get the knives
Yes.
sharpened right now.
So just so you know, there's a certain lived experience we've all had since we were all alive
during the grunge apocalypse.
during the grunge.
we saw the
apocalypse.
comet
And
appear
this
in the night
right,
sky.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So, okay,
that's
I'll be
the
quiet now.
perspective I want to give you on this. One thing that you guys have talked about is how you brought up correctly, I think, the whole guy from Newport Beach that is whining about his life, and that's kind of punk rock in 2004. And you weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you've got all these bands from Orange County living perfect lives singing about the man.
Yeah.
And it's completely unauthentic. Whereas Motley Crue, for instance, singing about what they know, life on the Sunset Strip. Here's my argument to that is, yeah, that was true for Motley Crue. But for someone like me that came from a pretty horrific inception, Motley Crue didn't speak to me. The idea of chasing chicks and riding motorcycles, no. Poison, looking like chicks and getting chicks, no. Does it, like, none of that resonated with me. And then along comes the Smiths, or in my case, even more so Rush, where they are singing from being outside of that circle. And all of a sudden there's a song like Subdivisions where it's like,
Oh, I love.
oh, did
Subdivision
Neil
so
write this for
much.
me?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah, I love Subdivision. If
And-
there was a top 5 favorite Rush songs, it's probably in the top 3.
Yeah,
I
'cause
love Subdivision.
The song's amazing. And what I feel with the grunge and the alternative movement, the 120 minutes type of music that was coming out when, by the way, Nirvana didn't kill your precious Shredfest. Trickster killed your Shredfest.
a
Pretty
record
Boy
company
Floyd.
executive
Yes.
killed it, and Tristan was a good band.
Chris Troll's a good band. Yeah.
So
Steve Brown's still a great guitar player. Shout out to Steve Brown.
Pretty Boy
Yeah.
Floyd, they were doing the glam thing,
Yeah.
and that still upset a
Faster
lot of
Pussycat,
parents.
yeah.
And you know what? They were gender positive at a time when that wasn't popular. So
but you have all of this subset of kids that it just didn't speak to.
Yeah, but that being said, those kids still existed all through the 80s and 70s too, and it wasn't like everything changed then. It only
Right, but I
changed
had
that-
to I had to find a Rush. I couldn't follow a Motley Crue, for instance.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it wasn't.
there was a Rush before the grunge.
Yeah.
This is all pre-grunge.
And Smiths and
stuff,
Rush were not
so-
grunge
Right.
bands either. you know?
But
Yeah.
grunge, a lot more song oriented, and a voice that so many of these kids that are slightly younger than me could relate to. I'm just saying it gave a voice to people that the 80s music maybe didn't, and that's why it has validity. That's my only point, is that you guys make it sound like it completely ruined music, but it gave a voice to voiceless, and I think there's merit to that.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think that those strange kids still existed in 1988 too, and there was always bands for them to find. It was really more of a cultural shift that was kind of brought on by corporate interests that was deciding, okay, we're going to now trash this other music that is not worse than it was 6 months ago. Now it's not cool anymore to be winger. But
Well,
you
I
know,
think
But it was
it was
pretty bad than it was 6 months ago. If you listen back now to popular metal recorded 90, 91, it sounds so contrived.
No More Tears by Ozzy Osbourne, Empire by Queensryche.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Uh,
Definitely.
Slip of
Well, I
the
guess
Tongue by
Winger's
White
first album
Snake.
would have been 88.
Yeah, Winger.
So-
Well, then that was In the Heart of the
In the
Young.
Heart of the Young,
No,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Actually, Pull came out around that same
Pull,
time.
yeah, Pull's a great album.
record, man.
Yeah.
XYZ. I mean, there's like so many.
Yeah,
killer
the
Yeah,
tracks.
see,
Stuff was
to
great.
me, Empire is a terrible sounding record.
Oh, that's so funny because I actually have gone on record as saying Empire is my all-time favorite production on any album. I'm glad this came up.
But and this is where that difference maybe lies, is
Yeah.
that I hear that and I hear completely contrived sounding, overly compressed drums. Everything sits in this narrow band, and while sonically you can turn it up and get volume out of it,
So much air, man. If you listen to something like, is there anybody listening on that? There's the acoustic guitars and the way that the clean acoustic guitars sit in the mix.
yeah,
It's
but
so
then,
beautiful,
but if
know?
you put that up against the best sounding album that came out around the same time, which is Little Earthquakes by Tori Amos, to me there's no comparison.
no, this is funny. On this podcast, we talked about. I'm a big Tori Amos fan. I love Tori
And
Amos.
Well, I wouldn't include her in the whole like grunge.
But she
thing.
is. She
Not at
is.
all.
She's that all. You think she's 80s
But she,
metal?
she,
Well, I
no,
don't
she
think she's
wrote
that
great
either. I mean,
songs,
there's
and
a
she's
third-
actually a
it's
great
not either
musician
or,
too. She's an
but,
awesome
you know.
singer. I mean, she's great at what she does.
But look,
I'm
there's
still going to go Team PJ Harvey if we're talking about great female artists of the night.
here's the thing. I'm defending a genre with you guys that I don't particularly like. I don't own a Smashing Pumpkins album.
Yeah,
I don't
I
own a
despise
Nirvana album. I don't own a Soundgarden album.
I actually like Smashing
But-
Pumpkins
But
somewhat.
none of that personally did it for me.
Yes.
For me, early 90s, I was more into Marillion.
Marillion's awesome, dude.
Like when
Are you
I
with
just
Fish or do you like the with Steve?
Steve Hogarth.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Steve Hogarth singing Fish material.
Yeah.
His version of Kaylee.
I remember hearing
just-
Easter with him singing it the first time and thinking that is some killer stuff, man. I love Marillion. You know Marillion?
There's a Fish connection. So
Yeah.
Trey Anastasio is involved.
No.
somehow.
Fish. The lead singer was the band. The band was called Fish, and then I can't remember what happened to him. It wasn't
He quit.
Okay, but he had like a whole tragic thing happen, right? He was like I don't know the whole story, but and then he got replaced by a guy named Steve Hogarth, and Steve Rothery is the guitar player in that band. Fucking great.
Steve
guitar
Rothery
player.
gets all this tone out of a as a
So
stock
good.
Squire.
Nice.
He's like
That's
a
awesome.
David Gilmour type guy in the sense that everything he plays
Sick.
it sounds perfect. Like everything note he plays is exactly in the
So
right
our-
spot.
Exactly what he means.
The drummer in my band, The Bitter Elegance, he and I have been playing together since we were
Wait, what was the name of the band again?
The Bitter
Oh,
Elegance.
there.
Yes.
We-
Would there be
awesome
like
band.
perhaps a
Everybody go out
website
and
that you
listen.
might be able to
Yes,
visit?
totally. It's time for promotion time.
Okay, thebitterelegance.com. Very active on Spotify. Please find us on there and listen to our stuff. Thank you.
Right.
But he and I have been playing together since we were 14. At the same time I discovered Robin Zander, he discovered Gilmore from Triumph. That was his
Yeah, that's so cool.
impetus to play.
I love that.
And he was huge into Marillion. And he
Marillion's
kept
awesome.
doing like we do when we're a musician and we have a friend. You've got to love this as much as I do.
Yeah.
And
It means so much to me. Yeah.
And he kept giving me the Fish era Marillion, which still to this day doesn't do it for me. Like there's something about his vocal that to me is too Peter Gabriel-ish.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. He was really trying to get that early Genesis thing. Yeah.
And they just sounded a little bit carnival-y, and I didn't, aside from Steve Rothery's guitar, there's nothing on early Marillion that did it for me. Well, he had 2 tickets to see Marillion on the Holidays in Eden tour, the one right after Season's End.
Yep.
And he had no one to go with, and he's like, I'll just give you the ticket. And I'm like, I don't want to go see this. So we're like halfway to San Francisco, and he's like, man, I've got a stomach ache. And I'm like, oh, maybe we don't have to go.
Go home, all right.
I'm getting excited about this, and he's like, no, man, we got to go. I'm like, I agreed to it, okay. So we go, and the opening band was a band named Dada,
Yeah, I remember hearing about
which I ended up completely falling in love with. And that Michael Gurley, killer guitar player. Anyway, so we see Marillion. I'm just waiting for this to get over. They come out and their first song starts. And I'm like, how did I not get this? Like, what was I not hearing in the stuff he was playing? 1 second in, totally sold.
Dude,
The very
I love
next-
it when
That's
that
so
happens.
cool.
the very next day, I'm getting all the stuff I can. He's got magazines on them. I'm reading every article, and to this day, Steve Hogarth, one of my favorite vocalists.
Really
he's
great
much
singer.
more of a psychedelic furs,
Okay.
kind of
cool.
Richard Butler sort of singer.
Yeah.
Superimposed over this Genesis influenced prog band.
Oh, that sounds
There's
awesome.
something magical as fuck about it,
Yeah, he's got great range too, and he's just a very diverse singer.
and a
It's-
killer
yeah.
front man.
Dude, I'm going to go on a Marillion deep dive this week. Thank you.
It's considered neo prog. That's kind of what that
Okay.
fits in.
If you're going to try to expose yourself to Marillion, my suggestion is listen to Season's End.
Okay, I will get a copy, and I'll.
That's their first
I'll open my raincoat.
First,
Make sure you're in the back alley if you're going to expose yourself to Marillion.
It won't know what hit him.
That's exactly.
the keyboardist in Marillion was at a party, and Noel Gallagher from Oasis was there, and they started chatting, and he goes, "Yeah, I feel like I'm in the most uncool band in the world," and Noel Gallagher just goes, "Yeah."
No, that's a band. Marillion's one of those bands that got like their little like their like cadre of people who just love them and support them. I mean, I'm definitely kind of tangential. I found out about those guys through Dream Theater because they actually did a live show with Dream Theater back at back in 90 something, like 97 or something. And I had only heard of Marillion, but when I saw them do a couple Marillion songs, like that is freaking great. I can't believe how good these guys are. It was incredible, you know.
Nice.
Spock's Beard's another band like that too. I'm not sure if you've ever checked those guys out.
I've heard of Spock's Beard.
They're not exactly like Marillion, but they're definitely that kind of almost undefinable sort of prog.
So the drummer in Marillion, Ian Mosley, he came on after like the first 3 albums. So they had a drummer in between that I don't believe he's actually on a recorded Marillion album, but he was their touring drummer between albums, was the drummer for GTR.
Oh,
Nice.
With Steve Hackett and Steve Howe.
Yep.
To this day, one of the 3 best concerts I've ever seen in my life.
You saw GTR, really? That's so cool, dude. Yeah.
GTR in San Francisco. They were their own opening band. Steve Hackett and Steve Howe did an all-acoustic, no
awesome.
vocal set as the opening act.
That is so cool.
And then Jonathan Mover on drums just fucking killed.
Yeah, Jonathan Mover's awesome. Played with all the Satriani stuff, early Satriani.
Yeah, he's on the first Fuel album.
Yeah. Is that right? He played the Fuel
Yes.
too? Wow. Didn't know that.
this is all making me want to go see an awesome live show.
That's true.
Soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally, man. Absolutely.
Let's all go to a concert together, guys.
Hammerfall, man.
So here's what you got out of my
That's
opinion
right.
of Grunge Apocalypse. You get to check
Yes.
out Marillion,
Yeah,
the
dude,
most
that totally works.
ungrunge thing that's ever existed.
Well, you know,
I
I
love
think that if you look at where Brian and I are coming from on the whole grunge thing, is we grew up worshiping Guitar Heroes and practicing at night and day, all day long, every day to be as good as Steve Vai or Eddie Van Halen, that kind of thing. And then by the time we came of age, by the time we were ready to unleash our skills upon the world, all of a sudden it wasn't cool to play guitar anymore. You know what I mean? We felt like the rug was pulled out of our feet.
But that's
you know what I mean?
completely fair.
Yeah.
I think I'm like maybe 4 years older, and I was already playing clubs and like doing it and being in kind of a definitely not a mainstream kind of band. We were doing the prog thing. We were very Marillion Rush, Kansas influenced, and there wasn't a place for us. Not that grunge opened any doors for that, but at least we weren't looked down upon by the hair bands anymore because we were at least you know, off center. But also I didn't like the grunge stuff. I like what it led to because loved Gin Blossoms, loved Sugar Ray. I liked all of that.
The first Sugar Ray album is awesome. After that,
Lemonade and Brownies, or the one after it?
I loved Lemonade and Brownies. God, that album hit hard. I listened to that in my '86 station wagon on the way to turn in my homeschool assignments that one summer in between junior and senior year of high school.
And I loved Goo Goo Dolls when they hit.
Goo Goo Dolls is good. Yep. I mean, I discovered those guys later, for sure. I mean, dude,
I can understand why someone would like Goo Goo Dolls. Not my personal taste, but
Dude,
I also don't like...
I played in the band that did tons of Goo Goo Dolls covers, so it's...
Their first album that hit, Boy Named Goo, where they were still rooted in their punk roots,
their punk
is just killer stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the songwriting
Maybe
has got
open
better
to
and
it.
better with those guys, too, man. Especially, like, Dizzy Up the Girl. I think that when you got to that level, I think that... Yeah, Johnny had figured out how to write songs at that point, you know, for sure. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm a fan of Goo Goo Dolls for sure. I definitely like those guys.
I don't
But see,
dislike Goo Goo Dolls.
the thing is,
so,
I'm coming
you know.
at the music industry and the shifts from my own filter,
Sure.
which is completely clouded by the experience I had going through that. And the 90s, especially the early 90s, were the worst time in my life. So I don't associate Grunge Apocalypse with anything good in my life, but what it led to and how I was able to develop as a songwriter and find a career post grunge, like I don't have the same negativity
Yeah, I mean,
about.
we were kids.
I totally
we didn't
appreciate
graduate
that.
high school till the mid '90s. So by the time we got out of high school, it was
Yeah, so I graduated in 96.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm way older than
Yeah,
you
I
guys.
graduated from music school in like '97. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things. By the time I was actually in the scene, it was like '98. It was like bro metal and. that
I
kind of thing.
graduated.
Yeah.
I graduated from college after 10 years in '96.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah. But
Even though-
that explains it because we were still kids in high school and stuff when the grunge thing was happening. I bet we were like we saw it
I
happen.
look younger than I am, is what this is saying.
Hey, we're all very immature for our
That's
age.
true. That is 1,000.
I hope that never changes.
Yes. Well, I mean, at least
Yes.
maybe in some ways. I don't know.
So I remember that period of time, and I mean, all we can do is describe it through our own filters, and that's what
My
makes
first
these
live gig was in
conversations interesting,
1984.
Oh wow. Very
Oh,
cool.
that's awesome.
Very cool.
I wish my first live gig had been in 1984, but I was 6,
Okay, so
so I kind of got screwed out of that one.
it was a party.
Right, I would have
Naturally,
liked.
naturally,
I
yeah.
happen to like parties.
Here's the thing, though. I really want to set the scene for you on this. Imagine not having any songs. Now, I don't mean you don't have any good songs or you don't have down the covers you're working on. I mean, you don't have any material. You and your drummer buddy, and you've owned instruments for 4 weeks, and you've got another guy that has a Memphis,
My Memphis
There'll be
electric
yeah,
real
guitar, my old
he has his
SC
Memphis, and I have
202.
my Hondo. So
Okay.
this is where we're at. And
That
Dave
sounds
had
like a western. Memphis and
Call the
Hondo.
band Mondo.
Memphis and Hondo starring
On
Mel
the
Gibson.
trail. Yeah, exactly.
And then Brock Toon has got his CB 700 drum kit. So
Brock Toon, who is the drummer
yes,
for the Bitter Elegance.
yes, and still to this day, he was there with my first gig in 85.
Awesome.
85.
We love Brock Toon. Shout out to Brock Toon.
So this guy's trying to throw us a bone that he's our buddy in high school. He's like, you guys should play my Halloween party. There's got to be girls there. That was like the big selling point.
That's all
because
that's all the
I
compensation.
erroneously thought that it was a guitar that got girls, not the self-confidence you get when you learn to play guitar that gets the girls.
Wah,
So-
wah, wah.
So we accept the gig, and we are so clueless about not having material. It hasn't really occurred to us, what are we going to do when we
Dude, we're
actually
totally
going to
play this party.
And
Okay,
right.
sunshine of your love.
But we don't.
Not even that.
No,
Yeah.
we have nothing. I know that it is impossible, as you guys being musicians, to wrap your head around a band
Like literally
having
nothing?
literally nothing. But I had a tube screamer, so we got a gig.
Yeah.
So we don't have a PA. We're getting all of our stereo speakers together, and I'm taking my electrical knowledge from electric shop class,
Nice.
electronics class, and we're wiring them together so that we can run our stuff through something. So it's a pool, and we're up on the upper deck behind the pool, and we've got an array of speakers
So we've got water and electricity. All right.
Perfect
Ingredients
combination.
for success.
and a tube screamer.
yes.
In fact, I show up and I take the tube screamer out of the box. I'm unboxing this for all of you people watching.
Yep.
And Damon, the guy whose house it was at, he said, dude, you brought an effect. This is going to kick ass.
Oh, I love
You
it.
have no idea.
I love it.
So we look at each other, we just start playing, but we're not playing anything because we have no material. The guitarist and I, we're playing totally different things. Brock Toon's in his own world. And at some point then we're like, oh my God, we have no songs. Like it didn't occur to us
As
till
you're playing,
90
you
seconds
discover it.
into playing nothingness that we aren't playing anything. And so I just start running around. I jump over the pool. I try to finger tap, which I've never done, but I kind of successfully did something.
Nice.
So after our 5-minute set, we're done. And then we're hanging out in the hot tub. And this kid comes over. He goes, you know, your band might be good if you had a song.
It's a bold assessment.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
a bold assertion, yes.
Yeah.
but it's hard to get people to understand exactly when I say no material that I mean not even a tuner. Like there's just nothing.
I think it's
Dude,
so
and
audacious.
yet-
yeah.
We did it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that you were at a party where there were other human beings in the same place, and like they talked to each other, and some things happened, and they had a common experience.
Dude, I gave no fucks
Yep.
that we didn't know what we were doing or couldn't.
That's
Yeah.
so
To me, anytime now I can play an outdoor show because it was outside.
Sure.
And I showed up with my 2 party lights that my grandfather got at a garage sale for me. The feeling of setting up those lights in the afternoon and plugging in my guitar and doing a sound check and having the sun go down right before you're going to play. Anytime I play outside, I am taken back to that fucking moment.
Yeah.
It is the most glorious nostalgia I could ever have.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I don't understand when people are like, yeah, I don't need to play live, or I don't need to be great at this. I just want to learn a song. It's like, but this is the greatest thing you could ever experience.
Yeah, you're missing out. Yeah.
It's coming from a place of wanting to share.
You could have played in front of one girl
Yeah.
at this party that was going to have, quote, girls,
more than one.
plural.
Yeah, right.
Man, who knows? Could be 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
well, I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
the sky is the limit on that one. Actually, that's a great story. That's so.
That's a killer story.
I love the
it.
audaciousness of showing up and then not even caring that you don't have any material. That's so funny to me.
But we didn't know enough to not care.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I'm totally gonna play in a party tomorrow. Right on. What are you gonna play? I don't know. That's awesome, man.
We haven't talked about that part.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All of a sudden, how magically
But
know
we'll
songs.
figure it out when we don't even know a single cover.
Yeah.
There's no figure out.
So with the unknown, we don't even know what we
In a
don't
way,
know,
though,
and,
so you had mentioned Stairway, I think.
Yes. So Jeffrey Prince is the director of Stairway to Stardom. Want to tell us all about it?
Well, just a little segue. I end up emceeing Stairway because since it's become a little bit my baby, the program, it's like I don't kind of want to give that component away.
So for all of our remaining listener out there, Jeffrey, could you please describe what Stairway to Stardom is?
Stairway to Stardom is Skips Music's youth music program designed for teens and slightly younger to get together. We put you in a band. We give you a mentor. You write and you record original music. We have your original music out on Spotify the day of the big show where you play in front of somewhere between 600 and 2,000 people. And I MC the event. My point of the whole MCing thing is that it's very much like stand-up. There's no safety net. I'm not hiding behind a guitar, and I have to be entertaining between everything. So my goal is to tell some kind of joke when I first go out that I know will bomb.
Yeah,
Because
smart.
the way I react to bombing on something will loosen me up to where I can do this.
Yeah.
And it telegraphs
wise.
completely back to that first gig when I was 14, not knowing that we don't know and that we have no material and going up. There is no way a gig could ever be worse than that. Ever. And I still had fun and I still have nostalgia on how awesome it was.
Yeah.
So I feel like doing that, going up when you don't know, going up into the unknown and facing it and experiencing worst case scenario, which isn't bad. The
Right,
worst
you're
thing
still-
that happens is you have a funny story later.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I've brought that to every experience. Like bombing isn't the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is not showing the fuck up.
Yeah, that's
right.
totally true.
Damn
Yep.
straight. Not showing up is the worst. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree, dude.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people who are in the arts always struggle with too. Is like, how do I put myself out there? And I always tell people, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You know what I mean?
It's important to be a doer.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? I mean, who's going to criticize you for being a doer?
But there are
Right.
douchebags who will do that too. There's always someone out there who
Well, I
wants
mean,
to
who
tear you
cares
down.
what they
you know
think?
what I mean?
But it's always
Yeah.
better to go out and do things than to just not ever try and do anything.
Yep.
Hence this podcast.
Yep,
And
exactly.
the three of us sitting here.
Yep.
We're all doers doing
That's-
this together. And I love that.
Yeah, this whole podcast came about because Ryan and I were recording in the studio, and we're sitting there talking about all the stuff you probably heard us talk about in the podcast. And he's like, "Hey, we should just make this a podcast."
Well, I'm for one thankful that you did because I find it. I mean, it is edutainment.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Thank
I
you, man. That's
appreciate
high praise.
that.
But I chose like your podcast over all these other things to listen to because after the first one I listened to, I was hooked on it. I found it really compelling. I agreed with a lot, but also there was enough for me to yell at the stereo about, that it's engaging. So
Well,
nice job.
I appreciate that. And if I could get just a little sentimental here, I really think that the only thing that matters in life are the relationships that you build. And so now I have this awesome document of the friendship I've built with Scott.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then also now with you, Jeffrey, and then with Tom Murphy, who was on, and Jude
Jude,
Morgan,
yeah.
who was on. The longer
And
we
everybody
do
else
this,
who has not been on yet, but will be on soon. And
yeah, so in 10 years when I'm on my deathbed, I can listen back. I'll be able to listen back to these episodes and be like, those are my awesome friends.
those are good times.
I'll tell you what, I am so proud of the people that I get to be friends with.
That's awesome,
They're
dude.
I don't know why you guys slum it with me, but I'm super happy. And That's how I
That's
feel
incredibly
about it.
sweet, Brian. Thank you so much, man.
It's the truth.
It's to me, it's just having fun with your friends and just do something, man. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We put out and only a handful of people appreciate it. That's not the worst thing that's ever happened. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Well, there is something, though, interesting about that. I'm a big proponent of write a song, record a song, release a song. Like, don't hold on to it as precious. Because there is something about quantity of output. And I'm not saying you do just a bunch of garbage, but you probably heard this study. There was what's it called when you do the clay pots?
Pottery.
Spinning the wheel.
Keeping plates spinning.
No, the wheel where you
literally
make
Oh, you
pottery.
mean like when Demi Moore and the Ghost?
Yes.
the ghost, yeah.
When-
in the
Ghost of
documentary
Patrick-
Ghost.
And I would say the Ghost of Patrick Swayze, but that's a little bit on the nose now.
No,
Yeah,
when he
so-
puts baby in the corner to make pottery.
Yes, exactly.
Is that the right movie?
He puts baby on the pottery
I'm
wheel.
pretty sure it's all the same movie, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
pottery wheel, whatever it was. So
Roadhouse.
they did an experiment where they took a ceramics class and they divided them into two groups. And they gave them a piece to make, and it was like, we want you to replicate this. One of you, you just make as many as you possibly can and try to get it as close as you can for the week that they have to do it. The other group, you're going to make one and you're going to make it look exactly as you can, and you can take all the time you want. The group that just made a ton of them that didn't care made better than the ones that did the one. Because the ones that did the one, they weren't practiced. By doing and doing and doing, you naturally will get better. There's no way that you can't.
Yeah.
The next album that we're releasing will be my 19th release.
Nice, dude.
Awesome.
Some of them are shit, but most of them aren't.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have been. If I would have waited, I think the first one I did that really had merit, that actually started earning money and got me a fan base, was like my 7th release. Well, without those 6, number 7 wouldn't have been what number 7 was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would have been more
absolutely.
like what number 1 would have been.
Yeah, I think
which
people-
was actually number 2, a big pile of number 2.
You're very, very kind to yourself on that one. Now, I would say that people don't appreciate art as something that's like something that has to be worked at. I think people just assume you roll out of bed, and if you're a great artist, you just make something amazing. I think they don't understand that there's a
Right.
whole process. You know what I mean?
Or if you just wait and wait and wait until
just come to you.
I'll take my one shot
You got-
until this thing's perfect.
I think it's what
But no, you have to-
DJ Khaled did that. I think that's what he was. He just waited
I'm
until,
not sure
until
what-
the perfect thing came to him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you
Yeah.
guys familiar with
Not sure what-
Fountains of Wayne outside of Stacy's mom at all?
I know that the singer is the main writer is no longer with us.
The bassist,
right? The bassist.
Adam Schlesinger, who wrote the Howard
So,
Stern theme,
yeah, that's
and he
too
wrote
bad,
tons of
man.
movie stuff. That Thing You Do, he was the
Right.
creative guy behind that. Josie and the
prolific, talented guy.
Josie and the Pussycats, he was the soundtrack guy there. Incredible songwriter, and he died from COVID.
Oh, wow.
But I'm a huge Fountains of Wayne fan, and their very last album was my favorite one, and I listened to it, and it's a flawless work of songwriting art, and everything sounds effortless.
Love it.
So I listen to it, and of course, my vision of them in my brain is they roll out of bed,
Yeah.
write this great song, go and record it. Well, I learned years later they broke up making that album because they were fisticuffs in the studio. That album was so hard to make.
Yeah.
So not only was it this impossible thing to make, the end result sounds effortless and is something that I can love. So anybody that thinks art is easy,
You know, it reminds me of like
Yeah,
a
and that's not
Olympic
the point,
gymnastic
yeah,
or something like that.
totally.
You watch a gymnastics program in the Olympics and think, oh my God, that looks so amazing. I bet I could do that if I really want. You don't see the 10 years of like the 8-hour days to make that something they could do. You know what I mean? That's something I think people see art that way too. They kind of think, oh,
So I think there's a sweet spot where, again, getting back to what I was saying about, I've never seen another guitar player and my reflex isn't to go, I could never do that. It's acknowledging like there's a lot of work and effort that goes into crafting that song or playing that way. But I'm also not going to deny myself the self-respect of going, well, I could if I wanted to eventually, or somehow, or I could work at my craft as hard as that.
well, and you
person.
have that because you've done that. You've sat and said, hey, I want to learn that Randy Rhoads solo. So you sat and did it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what the process is to make that happen. You know what I mean? It's not something that you can or can't do. It's how badly you want it.
You totally.
You know what I mean?
no,
That-
there is something really, there's something really deep about, I feel like, that concept. Because I'm at the level of guitar where I could potentially learn a pretty tricky solo that's out of my wheelhouse. But anytime I go, oh, I think I will learn that, I'm so distracted, and not into it about a half hour in, that I abandon it and I go back to writing something. And for years I would get on myself being like, you're a loser. You don't have any dedication to this. It's like, no, I'm not a loser. It's that I don't have dedication to that because that's not what my soul wants.
Yep.
It's like part of that is ego. I want to be able to play for my guitar buddies. Look, I can play the solo from Analog Kid. Look how great I am. But I don't really care about that. What energizes me is writing a 3-chord pop song that someone will sing back the first time they hear it.
Yeah, totally. And that's why we all need each other as musicians, right?
Yeah, one of my best friends says when people go, oh, you, to like a pianist, God, you play so great. I wish I could play. It's like, no, you don't.
You don't.
If you really wish you could do it, you would find the way to make it happen.
That's right. Thank you. That's exactly right.
We said it before. Like, passion's a much better thing than discipline. You know what I mean?
That's a Steve Vai quote. Passion always gets better results than discipline.
It wasn't a hard thing for me to sit down and practice 12 hours a day when I was young. It was something I wish I had 14 hours, instead of 12 hours. You know what I mean? To sit and practice because I couldn't accept the fact that I didn't have the skill yet. So I'm like, I'm going to do this all day long, every day, as long as it takes until it's there. You know what I mean?
Now, that also doesn't mean that you can't, again, I think music's best when it's a team sport, and all the cool people I know who have special skills and focuses, you can glean a little bit of something from everybody else without...
It's true,
I was working on a new song with Brock Toon last night. We're in the studio, and we've got pieces, and I'm not going to bore you with details of this technical shit, but we knew that we needed this signature riff. And he's playing drums, and I'm trying to come up with something, and it just isn't happening. He goes, "You'll probably come up with something. Clearly, it's not happening now. We'll just put a pin in this." He leaves. I go to make dinner. I've got plans for the evening. I'm like, "F those plans. I'm writing a goddamn riff." Not because of the discipline that I had to write a riff and get this song done, but because the only thing I cared about was the awesomeness of what would this be like if I wrote this.
Yeah.
And so I wrote until I literally fell asleep with the guitar on my lap on my bed. I woke up in the morning, like I gotta take a shower. I took a shower and I started singing a riff in my head.
Yep.
I'm soaking wet and I come out and I'm sitting on my bed in a towel and I'm writing that riff.
Yep.
My whole life, this last 24 hours has just been writing this riff, not because of discipline, but because I care more about that riff being the most badass fucking thing that could ever happen than anything else in my life.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable because I can tell you,
that.
man, being in a room full of creative people, like when you talk to people who don't come from a creative background, who are like accountants, lawyers, doctors, that kind of thing, that thing you're describing right now would be completely foreign to them to understand that something that drives you to create something so much can be so important to you without it having a giant financial windfall. Does that make sense? There's definitely a mindset among certain people, especially in the professional class, where like, if this isn't going to make me over 6 bills, I'm not even going to bother to do this thing. You know what I mean? And I think the idea that you can't go to bed, you can't do anything else until you finish this idea, this creative thing needs to be scratched so much, is something that's really worth applauding because that's something that is valuable to humanity. You know what I mean? I really believe that. I think that creating things, whether it be art or music or comedy or theater or whatever it might be, is such an important part to making life worth living. That's something that needs to be applauded, and I think that's awesome that you do that.
I have a job outside of music. I'm a licensed interior designer. That's my other. Uses the same part of my brain because the way colors work together is the same way notes work together. There's harmony, and I was on a Zoom call with my day job. I'm calling it. Although being an interior designer is hardly flipping burgers, right?
Yeah.
So,
or breaking rocks in the sun.
Right. I mean, it's still an artistic endeavor. Yeah. Well, they asked me in the Zoom call, they're like, "How do you keep passion for this job?" And they were expecting something very mechanical about the products that we offer. And my answer was, I go, "Well, I'm not passionate about the job. I'm passionate about making beautiful things in the world. And I want the clients to have more beauty in their home." Same reason I make songs.
Yeah.
And like, this was completely foreign to the person that was asking me this. He liked it and he appreciated what I was saying, not what he was looking for at all, because he's coming at it more from math.
Yeah, corporate.
For me, it's not math. It's, I want the person that I've affected in an artistic way to have a better life because they interacted with me.
Yeah.
And that's something that if you come from a background of people who are not maybe encouraged to be creative, that's something that they don't have that language for. You know what I mean? It's something that they kind of see as over there. It's not something that relates to them. You know
Yeah, and
what
I
mean?
was very fortunate that even my grandparents didn't get what I was doing with guitar. Like, I would get grounded for doing whatever horrific thing I was doing when I was 14. They would never take away my guitar.
That's awesome.
Like, I couldn't have the Atari.
Yeah.
No TV. Can't go to Dave's house. I'm like, well, about my guitar? Like, well, we're never taking that away from you. That's your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it was like,
Oh, well, game on.
well, they didn't mean for this, but what happened was, I'm going to do whatever the F I want
Right.
because the
never
only
lose
thing
my
I
guitar.
don't want to lose is the one thing they're not going to take away.
Dude, that's the most rock and roll attitude
Very
I've
much.
ever heard articulated.
You mean I have to go to my
That's
room and play
perfect.
guitar all day? Oh,
Right, I don't care what I fuck up as long as I still have my guitar. I love that.
that is so funny. Love it, man. Yeah, I
the
mean,
truth.
that's. I think that's something that's a common thread with most people we've had on the podcast, and hopefully the people who listen to the podcast too, is that music is important to you, and it's something that something you don't look at as not important. It's something that's a valuable part of your life, a valuable part of making you get up in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yep. Now, do we think that there are more or fewer or the same amount of young people out there having those same experiences right now, or is that different these days?
I think far fewer, man. I think
Well-
music is so not central to kids' lives these days. I mean, that's my experience.
I think that music is still important and it's an emotional backdrop for everyone's life, whether they know it or not. But I think that to like relate this to, the scene I felt like I missed because I was too young was the CBGB's real punk rock,
Yep.
Ramones, Blondie, television type
Right.
of thing.
Actual punk rock.
Because my soul as a guitarist, for anyone that's actually seen me play, I am a punk player. I have great timing. I can play eighth notes like a
You-
goddamn machine.
You've got skills, Jeffrey.
but-
you are more than just a punk player, man.
Well, I don't think being a punk player is a denigrating thing if you play it correctly. But that's really where I come from is really I'm beating the guitars with eighth notes into submission, and but that was a scene, right? Like everyone wanted to get in a band, and then you had all these new wave bands because the thing to do was to go see a band, form a band, be in a band. That kind of scene exists, but it's not in music, it's in TikTok.
Yeah.
Like now the thing is to get a TikTok account and create your identity through that. And look, I don't think it's as cool, but that kind of subdivision
Dun, 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 dun.
of kids finding a scene, it's not the scene we would have found, but it's still a scene. Music's still a very important part of that. But it's not the driving force of it. It's,
Yeah, it's not central. It's not the central thing that they
right.
form their life around.
Or if it is, they don't know it is.
Yeah.
So-
It wasn't like a day that went by we weren't thinking about guitar playing or music or bands or what I mean. That was
Yeah,
That
well,
was,
and-
Right, but the I'm not defending this, but
No, I mean,
but
just trying to
but
figure
it's
out
a
what it
different
is.
it's a different cultural touchstone.
totally. Yep.
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt that's
So,
true.
But everyone talks about this being like the me generation. They just want attention. It's like, what the F do you
What?
think we were doing?
I
Like,
thought the '80s was the me generation. Are you kidding
No, the
me?
80s was the me,
they
me
was really
generation.
called.
it's
the
always
me
going to be
generation, yeah.
kids don't want to work anymore and they only care about themselves. Is this new?
Right? Yeah, that's forever.
This
yeah,
is, to my
totally.
knowledge, the only time this has ever happened in human history.
So, do you think that the TikToking is more isolating? Are they getting together in TikToking, or is it just
I think it brings a lot of people together. I'm not doom and gloom about the isolation of people the way that I think the media makes this out to be. I want to shut down my socials because I just feel like they're a time drain. But then also I realize I'm connected to so many more people in a day in a positive way than I was before social media. Like, I'm introverted and shy. I don't go out much at all. But I have these lifelines to people that are dear to me, and maybe it is just a thumbs up on their post, but it's still a connection, and I still feel like, okay, they're part of my circle. I think there's value to that. I don't think it's as cool as seeing Blondie at CBGB's, but it's what we got.
Yeah. I wish that was all that social media had to offer was that. If it was only that, then I would agree with you. It'd be 100% a positive thing. But it's so much negative baggage comes along with it.
But as
too.
soon as you put people all together in a thing, there's going to be Pyramid of Cock somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
POC.
That's what that stands for? Oh, that gives me a whole different... Wow.
Dude, we could go on tour with Corrosion of Conformity. POC and COC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That'd be great.
Yeah, no, it's funny, man. I hear what you're saying, and then there's definitely a lot. You're totally right in the sense that it gives you a way to connect with people really worldwide and stuff, and that's true. And I just wish it was more positive all around. You know what I mean?
I'm also an adult, though, that doesn't trash other people.
That's true. Yeah.
So my experience is vastly different than someone that is hate typing behind the sanctity of their monitor and their keyboard.
Right.
So, I'm not saying it's all sunshine and roses. I'm just saying that I think there are scenes and there are people grouping together and there's people making art. It isn't, I would love if music was still the forefront of everything. Yeah. But in a world now where streaming, for all of its positives, and there are many, but it doesn't make music a central focus because you can pay $5 a month and that's your investment, and now it's just there. You don't have to seek something out.
Yeah.
And I think the seeking is where discovery happens.
Yeah, and that was because it was important to us to go down and pick out the new records from whatever band came out. Like, it was really important. I was like, that's what you did. Like, people say, hey, I can't wait to go see this new movie that comes out, or I can't wait to go see my favorite sports team. Like, we were like, dude, the Van Halen record comes out in June. We're gonna totally get that, and then Metallica comes out in August.
Yeah, or dude, there's this
planning your summer around those releases. Here. You know what I mean? It's that doesn't exist anymore.
But or like, dude, there's I've got this like demo cassette from this band. They're called Pyramid of Cocks. You gotta check them out, right? And then that's how POC would develop a following, and then it would be like this cool insider thing. Yeah, I miss that.
The thing is, I stay a kind of a child of the times. I tend to embrace new music when it comes out. I don't get stuck in. I mean, the way of the CD or the album coming out and me having to follow that and then get it when it comes out, it isn't a thing anymore. And so I've just kind of. That's the way it was, and now the way it is different.
Yeah.
My favorite song of like the last 20 years is a song called Anchor by Nova Amor. Well, you'd never hear it because how do you hear new music now?
Yeah.
Lizzie, my wife, and I were watching Hulu.
One of the streaming platforms.
One of those streaming ones, though, that has commercials. Paramount. We're watching Paramount, and it's a commercial for some sort of rash, and I don't think it's caused by Pyramid of Cock. I think it's just
when you were talking about the pottery and Ghost earlier, like, it was a phallus they were tasked with making, right?
So there's this. Anyway, it's some medication, and while all the disclaimers that it's going to kill you if it doesn't react correctly, there's this melody playing, and I tell Liz, I go, I can't wait for that commercial again. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? That melody, that song, it kills me. And so it comes on and she's like, this one, yes. And she looks over and there's tears streaming down my eyes because I've tuned out the announcer and I just hear this thing behind it. But I don't know what it is.
So you're not hearing anything about the rectal bleeding? That's not in front of mine,
Severe constipation.
Yes, exactly.
Rectal bleeding.
So what she did is she popped
eye hemorrhaging.
At some point when it came up again, because they showed the same 3 commercials during a show every time, she did her Shazam app or whatever, and so anyway, she found the song and sent it to me.
Nice.
So that's, I guess, how you discover music now. You have one that you hear that you no longer can live without. And that's where I was with that goddamn song. Like,
that's cool.
It was so beautiful. It haunted me. And there was no way I could live my life without having it in my catalog. Like, So I think if someone makes something great, people are still going to find it.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is that you're throwing something great into an ocean of other things.
But you were doing that before. You just had a record company gatekeeper, and then you had the program director. They were still spoon-feeding to the radio audience what was available.
That's true, but back then you didn't have everybody in the world releasing music too. You know what I mean? That's the big challenge is just getting eyeballs. And
that is. I think there is something to be said about having a gatekeeper.
Yeah,
pros and cons.
But also, as an artist and trying to be self-promoting and figure out how to get your stuff out there, it certainly helps to know the mechanics of how it works.
Yeah.
Without getting into a 3-hour treatise on this.
Yeah.
If you're on Spotify, you need to make sure you have more than 50 monthly listeners every month. That is your bottom line goal, because if you don't, Spotify doesn't recognize you.
See,
Now-
these are things.
Now, look, you'll still get your royalties. You'll never get a payment because 0.001
You're
cent
right.
per stream
Yeah.
isn't going to add up to enough. Spotify, that's how they keep everything under control. Because with 80,000 songs being released every day, it would be unmanageable. What they do, though, is they have a line of demarcation, which is if you have less than 50 monthly listeners, you aren't even part of the platform. You're on there, people can find you, but you're not in an algorithm.
Yeah.
You don't exist to Spotify.
You're not being suggested to another listener.
And here's the thing 85% of everything on Spotify has less than 50 monthly listeners. So you're actually only dealing with the top 15%.
Interesting.
So you need to make sure you have over 50 monthly listeners if you want to be in the top 15%. That's how much garbage
Wow.
is on Spotify. And I don't mean Butch Vig garbage. I mean garbage.
Oh, nice reference. And I know
Nice.
you're talking about the band Garbage, but when you say Butch Vig Garbage, I'm like, yeah, Nirvana sucks.
That's almost like it doesn't have to be
But
said.
that's
though,
okay.
Ryan.
Sorry,
It
I
doesn't
couldn't
have to be
help it,
said,
man. You put it on a silver platter for me.
I'm giving him a look that is just, it's like I'm shooting a pyramid of cock out of my forehead.
Have that visual, audience. Have that visual. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That was a good volley, though.
That was a good volley.
Yes,
but I mean,
indeed.
everyone should
So
agree
that's-
that Nirvana sucks, though. I mean, I think that's,
So,
you know.
so I've got a buddy who maybe still is. I don't know if he's still.
Will you be after this comment?
No, you will be. No,
right.
no. Well, so he was, getting big into cryptocurrency. So I wonder if there's a way I could like repurpose his crypto farming computers to like downloading my song.
So
It's a real question in there.
don't do that. So first off, do you really want your listeners to be bots? Like, is that going to make you feel good about yourself? Like,
Oh, well, of course not.
So,
but I
okay,
mean, if the
but-
goal is to get it into
No.
an algorithm so that someone else listens
no,
to
the
it.
goal is to actually have 50 real monthly listeners. That's a small number. Imagine that you play in a band and you have a mailing list and it's 2004 and you're playing, at True Love Coffee House and there's 35 people there and you can get 15 of them on your mailing list. 50 is not a huge number. You want them to be real.
Yeah.
And this is just getting you to the bottom rung of the ladder, but at least now you're not standing in the goddamn basement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get real listeners. Don't try to trick the algorithm. And certainly having a song that falls into what the algorithm will pick up. We've been very fortunate in having one of those, but we didn't contrive it. It just happens that the song fits kind of whatever algorithmic mystery
Yeah.
who's opening for Pyramid of Cock next week.
Oh, nice. and just and to be clear, right? I'm totally ignorant on the topic, so it's that algorithmic mystery that I'm curious about.
Okay, I'll try to distill this down because I'm not an expert by any means. But-
Okay, maybe just a trapezoid of cocks.
Okay.
How about a rhombus of cocks? That sounds like more, it's made in the-
So the first one is you want to get your song to actually be listened to by enough people that maybe they're sharing it. Because once they share it and more people see it, Spotify has a bigger chance of seeing it. An algorithm can pick up automatically on things like song length and especially volume. If your song is too goddamn loud, like don't compete in the volume more if you want to be in Spotify, but also don't undercut. Everyone's now, the big buzzword is master at 14 LUFS because minus 14 is what Spotify broadcasts at, but you don't want to do that. And I just can tell I've lost every one of your one listener.
Someone's like rummaging around the fridge
14
right now. So.
LUFS.
Yeah, minus 14 LUFS.
Okay.
It's a new way of basically tracking instead of absolute decibels. It's a more accurate way for overall loudness.
Okay.
Anyway, it seems that the algorithm loves it if you're at like minus 10 to minus 11, right around there. It loves if your song is right around 3 minutes. It loves if the lead vocal comes in under 17 seconds. These are things that
Wow.
I don't like the contrivance of it. So what I would say is you write what you're going to write, and then if you have a song that happens to fall into that, good for you.
Yeah.
I would never be someone that would sacrifice what I think I want to say in a song to meet their goddamn algorithm.
Yeah.
So anyway, don't spend your crypto. I think there's a couple of reputable ones that do playlist brokering. Playlistbooker.com is one where it seems like those plays are real plays. Like they get you into a playlist that's real people, not bots.
Cool. I mean, the whole idea is to get ears on your stuff that would appreciate your stuff.
Yeah,
right? That's always the quest.
I've invested money in that particular one because I like them on several songs. Most of them didn't take off, but one just got picked up, and now for months and months, it's literally on right now somewhere.
I love that.
Our song is getting played every second of every day,
That's
somewhere.
awesome.
Someone is
that.
choosing to listen to it.
That's awesome.
So,
congratulations,
but
man.
it's
That's
hit,
great.
but it's
really
hit and
good,
miss. For that one song, there's 54 others that, some have 20,000 hits, and that's good. But
Yeah, it's really good. I mean,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, and hopefully that translates to people who invest in you.
yeah, and
invest in what you're doing,
we have, last time I looked, we have 14,000 monthly listeners.
Nice.
The thing is, though, so for followers, we have 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
We only had 6 months ago 85 followers.
Wow,
That's for the algorithm right there. Yeah.
that's awesome.
We had 85, and once it got to 100, then it really started going. Once it went to 1,000, the next 1,000 was just a slight bump. Like it compounds upon itself. And when you have a song like Headphones, which if you're out there listening and want to hear our hit song, Headphones by The Bitter Elegance on Spotify and Apple Music.
Look at you going with your own.
Do it.
You get your own
Do it.
plug. All right.
That's
Good
awesome.
job.
Hey, that's also what we're here for.
Yep.
Damn it, I lost what I was going to say.
Awesome song, Headphones from the Bitter Elegance.
I wasn't saying it was awesome.
I'm saying it's awesome. I'm the one. I'm selling
That's
it.
right.
Man.
We're
Yep.
so awesome.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, that right there shows the power of the algorithm right there.
Yeah, so the song got, at 85 listeners, it got to the 100 threshold, and then it just
Right.
blew up. That's awesome.
That's very cool.
And then that increases your monthly listeners, and then that increases your other listens as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny as an artist, you've got to be able to put your marketing hat on too. And that's something that I think doesn't come naturally to a lot of artists. The idea of I got to go sell this thing or find a way to get it in front of an audience. That's something it's a little foreign.
It is, but I think the answer is the same no matter the era or the format or the medium that it's going across. Like you had asked me, what's the secret? The secret is write a song that people want to hear and get fans. That's the same on Spotify as it is trying to get a club gig, as it is selling a CD, as it is getting a record deal. It's write a great song, have people like you. Like that's the secret to Spotify. Those 50 people that are monthly listeners, they don't like you, they're going to drop off immediately.
You know what's funny?
Yep.
That actually reminds me of a
Makes
Steve
sense.
Martin quote. I mean, Steve Martin was talking, the comedian and actor Steve Martin. And
God, what was he in?
he was obviously in Man with Two Brains, obviously. I mean, all those great 70s and 80s comedies.
God
Sure.
damn, your
Yeah,
drunk driving tests are hard. That was a joke.
I
I've
remember
seen
he was
every
like-
Steve Martin movie like 18 times.
I guess he was some actor was asking him for advice, and his advice was, "Be so good they can't ignore you." And I was like, "Oh, there you go. That's basically
Wow, I like
a lot
that.
of what Jeffrey's saying right there. Is be good." you
Well,
know?
it distilled, and I think that even with if your focus is great guitar playing, you need to have a song that's a vehicle for that great guitar playing, and write a great song. Writing a great song is the key to the whole thing.
Yep.
If you want, you can do everything else. If you don't have a song people want to hear, it does not matter how much effort you put into getting Spotify listens.
Yeah, it's
if you
true.
don't have the song that people want to hear, it's all for naught.
You can't
Right.
force it.
Makes sense.
And yet you can have a song and put in almost no effort, and something might happen because it's just a song people want to hear.
That makes sense. We're gonna see around.
Oh, I was just going to say, so just don't suck.
Yeah.
Is the moral of the story.
That's the key, guys. Make sure that whatever you write doesn't suck.
Yeah, so if you take anything away from this podcast, folks, be good, don't suck.
Exactly. And pyramid of cocks.
But there's also the thing is though,
I'm already getting the T-shirts made.
being good or writing a great song or being a great guitarist. Yes, if your goal is you want to get listeners and build upon this, you need to do that. But you should fucking do that anyway.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that's right.
what got me through the really rough times of my music career, for those that don't know, I had a bit of success in the early to mid 2000s and then a big kind of drop off, and now I'm kind of building back up. The thing that got me through the drop off is I was still writing what I was proud of.
Yeah.
The being good is its own reward. It's like, wow, we didn't sell any albums, but I listened to it and it gives me joy, and it's a fucking monster record.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get my happiness from that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then vice versa. If you wrote something you don't believe in and it was successful, you probably wouldn't feel the success because you didn't like what you did.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
then
Right,
then you don't feel authentic. That
right.
though, fortunately, I never had anything that did well that I didn't believe in.
Sure.
The band I was in the 90s that just was this terrible prog thing called Thin Ice, it was never music I really wanted to do. It was a compromise between you're trying
Everybody
to get this
in the
thing
band,
together,
yeah.
right? So, well, I'll give on this because I want this drummer to play with us. But I always never was into it. Luckily, it never took off, so I didn't have to have that crisis of conscience that I released shit and people liked it. It's like, I released shit and nobody liked it. Oh, that tracks.
Easy to move on.
Moving on to my own man. All right.
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. I think we probably need to
point.
start wrapping up at that point. We are having such a great time. Jeffrey, thank you so
know.
much for coming in and spending some time
Jeffrey,
with us today.
dude, thank you. I hope this isn't the last time you appear on the podcast.
It has to be after
What?
those remarks about grunge and Pyramid of Cock.
We barely even got to sink our teeth into that pyramid
That's
of talk.
true. Exactly. We have so much more to say about it. My
That's
God.
the name of your sex tape.
It's on VHS, so no one's going to see it, so it's cool.
It's mostly handy cam stuff, right? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Go, sorry, finish your thought.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan, Scott, and Jeffrey. Please make sure to check our socials at facebook.com/xagesband, instagram.com /xagesband, and twitter.com /xagesband. Ryan, last thoughts?
That's EXAEGISBAND.com.
Sweet. All right, thank you guys for listening. See you next time.
Peace.